Welcome back, guys, to this clown's garage. So it turns out that Brianna has a surprise for us. She bought a car for us to do an LS swap in. Let's see what she got. What the hell is that? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What the hell is this piece of crap?
It's an 85 Mercury Marquis, clown.
85 Marquis.
Gave it to me.
Nice. And guess what, folks? We're gonna put in here an LM7 LS engine with a T56 6-speed. This is currently on 3.8, 6-cylinder automatic. Where the hell did you get this, Brianna?
Oh, I found it on Facebook. I told the old man I was going to take real good care of it, clown. I want to show you how good I'm going to take care of it. Let's go, clown.
Let's do this.
All right, clown. Let's see if we can do a burnout in this turd.
Let's see what this beast got.
Oh, yeah, clown. She's smoking them up real good.
Whoa!
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, baby.
Woohoo!
Remember, Brianna, nice and easy, like you told the old man.
I did promise that old man.
Yeah, baby. Alright, ladies, we're in the garage now. So this car, like I said before, it's an 85 Mercury Marquis. It's pretty much essentially a foxbody Mustang. It's the same body. It's an 80s Mustang. So this has a 3.8 in it, V6. And we're taking that out, we're putting in a 5.3 LS engine. And we're converting it from auto to a T56 6-speed stick. We're going to start by unhooking everything from the top, draining all the fluids, and then we're going to drop everything from underneath. So let's begin! First things first, take the battery off. It's a 1/2 inch over there. Damn, Brianna, what'd you do here?
It's been a while, huh, clown?
She's tight! Now the battery hold down, it's an 11mm. This out of the way. This out over here. That out. Okay, this goes to transmission. So there you go. Comes off. There's two 13mm bolts back here that hold the throttle bracket in place. Take those off. Now over here, you just pull this out, and this whole throttle bracket assembly is off. Alright, so all these wires here, we're not going to use them. We're getting a new harness. This is the distributor wire, the cruise control wire, the fuel injectors, coolant temperature sensor, so far so forth. So I'm just going to go in here, cut them all. It's garbage. Cut these. Cut cruise control. And that's all done. Take the vacuum lines off the motor. Got a big vacuum line over here, which is going to tee the vacuum tree on the firewall. Cut this off. Some more sensor wiring. Cut away, cut away. Get the reservoir off. These are 10mm. So under the reservoir tank, we have some vacuum solenoids. All these are going to go. Garbage. This is a map sensor. We're going to take that off. Cut these wires. Cut, cut, cut. chop away, chop away. Right. There's two 5/16 bolts. And the other one's here. And this comes right out. Take the map sensor off. Take the AC wiring off. Cut this AC line. Don't worry girls, there's no freon in here. Pop the AC compressor off. And there's a bolt in the back below this. I took that off too. This whole thing comes right out. 11 millimeters. I'm going to undo the radiator hose from the water pump. Take the upper radiator hose off. I'm going to cut the trans line. I took the horn off. There was a bolt bolted to the frame rail over there and a wire connecting to it. Now this thing should come right out. Whoa! Yeah, baby. And now we're making our way to this side of the motor. And there's a harness here. That harness that we cut before. And this harness is full of vacuum lines. So tear all that out. Okay. That out. That out. That's the side. I'm just going to cut that off over there and pop the coil off, the clip off, take that out. This is the alternator. The alternator, we're just going to cut these wires. There's 3 of them. Bam. Okay, now there's a harness here. These are 2 oxygen sensor wires and 2 ground wires that go at the back of the head. So I just cut those, don't need that. There's a ground strap here that goes to the back of the engine. Cut that, we'll put a new one. Heater core hoses. Another heater core hose that goes to the pump. Okay, now the fuel lines. Okay, fuel lines are done. Now the Evap box, there's 2 hoses on top. Just pull them out. Over here, there's a 5/16 bolt. And this just slides out. This comes out, the whole vacuum harness. Look at that, baby. Woo! Yeah. Now the steering shaft, steering wheel straight. We're going to change the shaft. So it's a 16 millimeter bolt on top, a pinch bolt. And on the bottom I have an adjustable wrench. Go ahead and take that off. That's it. Alright, so I squirted some butter sauce in there. So when we're dropping the engine, I just gotta take a quick look at that and make sure that's sliding out with the engine. Alright, now everything on top is pretty much done with. We're gonna get everything underneath now. The only thing we have left is positive cable going to the starter. I have to disconnect the starter wires over there. And that's pretty much it. Oh, there's also a ground strap, the ground cable that goes to the battery. That goes to the block underneath over there. So we gotta undo that and take it off the block. And I think that's all we have to do on top here. So we're gonna raise the car up now. That's the ground cable going from the ground side of the battery to the block. We're just gonna cut that because we're gonna make a new cable. And now this one here is the power cable going to the starter from the solenoid. We're just gonna make our own cable here, so we can just cut this too. Okay, now back here, we're the tail shaft and transmission. Take the vehicle speed sensor off. Just like that. There's the connector here for the transmission. Disconnect that. So over here, I'm putting a 12-point socket, and that's a 12 millimeter to get the back of the drive shaft over here. Put a breaker bar on it. Oh yeah, yeah baby. She was nice and tight, unlike my camera girl over here.
Sorry, clown.
Yeah, it's a little too late to apologize. And this is the fourth one. And they're all off. And now, knock it with a mallet over there to loosen it up. Oh, just like that. And now in the front over here, should slide right out the slip yoke. Came right out the shaft, baby. Cut the sway bar off. I just cut the end links off because they're usually rusted solid. So I'm just gonna cut this off. Alright, so that's cut in half. It's good. Before we take the sway bar out, there's a clip here. We gotta take that off because we need to remove this panel. Go in here. And try to pop that out. Woohoo. And it flew into my camera girl's face.
Wow, Clown.
You like that, huh?
Oh, yeah.
This one's already off. And now over here we have one more bolt on the bracket. It's a 14mm. Go ahead. So it's a 1/2 inch. And this comes... we're just going to take all the oils out, the engine oil and transmission oil. We're not going to show that. Okay, now this is for the shifter on the column. We don't need that. We're going stick. So I'm just going to cut it off over here for now with a Sawzall. Oopsie. Oopsie, Brianna.
Mount my shifter cable, Clown.
Yeah. And it's off. Okay, now take the tie rods off. Take the caliper off. This comes right out. Hang it up here. Pop that off. Straighten out the cotter pin. Loosen that up. Now this thing comes right off. Get out of the ball joint. I took the cotter pin out, I loosened the nut, I put it all the way up. So get a nice flat surface up here. I'm just gonna hit it with the air hammer. And I left everything else connected with the strutters on top. I didn't loosen anything. Now the weight, the pressure of the spring is gonna help push this down. Do that. So I put the jack underneath. I pushed up the control arm a little bit, so this whole assembly doesn't come shooting out. I put a vice grip over here to hold the shaft so the shaft doesn't spin. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the top nut. Yeah, baby. Now take the nut off here, the ball joint, and push the strut down. And now we have to lower the jack. And now you could pop this. You could push down on the strut over here and I put my leg there so it doesn't really pop out. And that's it. There goes the spring. And over here, the spindle and the strut come right out. Oops. Just don't break the plastic piece. Just like that. Now with it, we're taking the transmission mount off. Came right up. Now we put a jack underneath the transmission. We took that bolt off, the transmission mount. Now we're doing this transmission mount bolt. And I'll take the motor mounts over here, the rubber bushing. And this whole thing comes off. Alright, now everything is loose. And we're lowering it down very slowly onto that table that we have in the middle over there. We're gonna wait right there. And now there's 8 K-member bolts. There's 2 in the back and 2 in the front, right above the control arm where the spring needs to sit. There's 2 here and there's 2 back here. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen all of them a little bit and readjust the table if need be and lower the car a little more down. Now we also put some wood blocks there to take up some clearance. Now I'm going to do the front. Job side. Now as you can see here, it's actually touching the wood. So once these 2 bolts are out, then I can take the other side and we're done. Alright, so this is the last one. All the K-member bolts are out, all 8 bolts. And now everything is resting on the table. Alright, let's raise her up! I'm going to do a quick run around, make sure nothing is catching anywhere. Raise her up some more, everything's clear. Second. I see a line here, just move it out of the way, no big deal. Everything over here is clear. Keep going up, Charlie. Woohoo! There she is, ladies and gentlemen. She's out! So guys, this is the engine bay without anything in it. It's nice and empty. What we're going to do here now is we're going to clean everything up, degrease everything, maybe power wash this stuff here to get most of this grime out of the way, and probably use a Pour 15 or similar type of paint just so this never rusts. It's also a good idea when doing a car up like this, you spend all this money on it, make sure there's no rot or anything, especially by the frame rails or the strut towers themselves over there, especially on these cars, the foxbody cars. We're also going to clean up the wiring, all the wiring that we don't need, the vacuum hose that we don't need. The next thing we're going to do now is we have a clutch pedal assembly, a brake and clutch from a 88 turbo coupe, Ford Thunderbird turbo coupe, and we're going to take the one that's inside the car out now and replace it with this. So I'll show you all that. Oh, one more thing. I was thinking about it. What do you think, Brianna? Should we dub this project Shit Stain?
Oh yeah, Clown, that's a great name.
It's very fitting, right?
Oh yeah.
Thanks. I think, yeah, that's what it is. Project Shit Stain.
Project Shit Stain.
Yeah, baby. So let's take this brake pedal out. Oh, Brianna, we're up close and personal right now.
Oh yeah, Clown.
Yeah, baby, like old times.
Oh yeah.
Alright, so this is a brake. Sorry, this is the cruise control module here. We don't need this. We're taking cruise control out. And there's a 9/16 bolt here holding against the firewall. So I'm going to take that out. I broke it, Brianna.
Oh no. No cruise control.
Nope. Fucked up.
Oh boy.
And might as well break this one too, right? Woo! This one here. Now the hood latch Pull lever here, I'm going to take this out. It's 3/8 bolts. This is in the way too. And just put it on the side. A pair of nuts. And the top one is now also out of there. Alright, now there's a firewall nut. Take that off. Now there's 4 of these nuts on the firewall. I did the 2 on the left side, now the 2 on the right side. Another one on the top right. Yeah, baby. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. Now this cruise control brake switch. Pop that hose off it so you get to the bolt on top. And the brake switch is also out. There's a clip on the side of it. Pull it off and pull it out. I'm going to take the cruise control switch out with my long pair of dikes. Now there's a bolt on top. Take that off. Now take this piece off underneath the column, the panel. Now, we did the 2 steering column bolts back here. Now doing the front ones. Nuts. And be careful when you take these front bolts off, the column's gonna fall down. So, have your camera girl grab your shaft.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't fall. And the whole column should drop. Alright, now we're going to take the steering column out because it'll make it easier to pop the whole brake assembly out and put the new one in. So there's a trim piece on top. You just pull this up and out. It goes over here. These are all just held together with a bunch of screws. So nothing major here. And this can come right off too. There's a slit in there. Just like Brianna's slit.
Oh, yeah.
But this one's tighter. And now we're going to take these harnesses off. Oh, yeah. Now back here is just a couple of clips. Pop them up and out. These are the same color, so when you put them back together. I'm just popping clips out, folks. Nothing special to see here. Alright, so I clipped this. It goes to the gear selector. We don't need that. I took a bunch of these clips out over here, and now we'll probably take this whole steering column out. Okay, so after a little finagling, this bad boy is out. Woo! Alright, now this is easier to get to get the push rod out for the brake booster. Just put a hook in there and pull that out. And once you pull that out, there should be a washer behind it. You pop that off, and pop the switch out. Pop the switch off like that. And now brake push rod is free of the assembly. We'll take this whole assembly out. Now, yeah, baby. Now we still have a clip here. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen. There she is. Alright, so this is a neutral safety switch on the clutch pedal. We're not going to use this. Just take this hairpin off. What we're going to do is we're going to use the harness going to the C5 underneath for the neutral safety. I'll show you that when we put that together. And there's a screw over there. I'm going to take that off. Garbage. Take this clutch pedal switch off too. Also taking this off is a vacuum switch. So our friends over at Tech Performance hooked us up. They gave us a adjustable clutch master cylinder kit for 9802 Camaro Firebird. We also got a remote clutch, speed bleeder, and a reservoir kit, remote clutch reservoir kit for a 10 to 15 Camaro. These guys, I am going to put a link in the description below for the website. And this is the master. It comes with their CNC machine block to give us the correct angle on the firewall. So this will alleviate a lot of the problems that we have. And it's an adjustable rod for the clutch. That's going to go on the clutch rod over here. And the remote, the bleeder, and the remote reservoir kit. Alright, now here's a little situation here. This rod end does not fit over here where the clutch pin is. So we went to our local speed shop. We got this rod end. And this fits nicely on there. Now the only problem is we don't have a spot. See where the groove is? We don't have a spot to put a hairpin or a C-clip in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind down the face of this rod end over here to give us enough clearance to fit something in there. So go ahead and do that now. Now we also tried drilling this hole a little bigger, but this is hardened over here and there's no drill in this. We barely made a mark on this when we tried to drill it. So that's why we got a bigger rod end. Thinned it up a little bit on the sides, and now we have enough space for a C-clip in here. So it's going to go just like that. Just like that. That's not going anywhere. Good job, Brianna. It's nice and tight.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now that this is the same width as that, pretty much, what we want to do here is I'm going to cut this off, because this thread's in here. Like that. This is a left-handed thread. Over here I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to sink this in halfway, so we're going to have halfway sticking out. And I'm going to weld this in here to make it a male end. So I'm going to do that now. Now I'm going to cut this over here. Okay, put the thread rod into the rod end over there. Now I'm just going to weld it around. Alright, so I hit it on both sides. Now I'm going to put this on and see if I could break it loose. That's good, baby. Now I have the whole assembly here. I'm just going to mock it up, put the 4 screws in from the 4 bolts in from the firewall. Okay. Alright, so this is the hole we're going into with the rod, the clutch rod, and the master. That's where the shifter was on the column that went through. Alright, so that's the clutch pedal all the way up. All the way down is right here. All the way up and all the way down. So now we want to get rid of this space over here. It's about 1.5 inches space, but I'm going to cut 1 inch off this rod over here and see how it sits. Alright, so that's about 1 inch. I'm going to cut that off, see how it sits in the car. Okay, whenever you cut some screws, always run up the nut to clean up the threads. And now this should thread on nicely, just like that. Alright, so we're almost there. We need about a finger thickness, and that should be perfect. So I'm going to cut off a little bit more on that rod. So we're pretty happy with the clutch rod size, the length. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this grommet off. There's just a bunch of screws here. There's 4 screws. Take it off from the inside and this whole thing comes off. We're going to grind this lip down a little bit. Then we're going to make a plate and bolt the plate up here and make 2 holes. Put this back on and make 2 holes for the steering shaft and for the clutch.
Hey, clown, I can see you.
Hey, Brianna. Now I'm going to grind down this lip a little bit so I can put a flat piece of sheet metal there. Okay, so that's grinded all down. It's nice and flat. You can also put a wet rag in here if you're scared of the sparks. But this came out pretty good. Okay, now over here we need a reinforcement plate. So Master could sit on it and mount on it. So I'm taking a piece of cardboard and I'm just going to cut it around to shape it up so we can put bolts here and bolt up the piece of sheet metal. So I'm just going to follow along over here. Then I'm going to trace this onto a piece of sheet metal. Now for the reinforcement plate, we're probably going to use 2 pieces of sheet metal because I have these laying around over here. One stainless steel and one is just plain old steel. So we're going to cut the template out that I made. And let's cut her. Alright, so these plates are done. They're going to sit like this, just like that. We're probably going to put, you know, some bolts over here to hold this in. Now we're going to put the rubber grommet on. I'm going to mount the pedals and the steering shaft. And we're going to see how that sits. And then we're going to start making holes in this. Back on the steering column, this is for the gear selector. Don't need that anymore. That comes off the shaft. We're going to take off this gear selector over here, this lever. And now you got to move this over to get to the back screw. Just like that. And this comes right off. Alright, so we're going to put everything back together over here, but we forgot about the gas pedal, so might as well do that now since everything's out of the way. And go ahead, there's 2 nuts over there holding that in, 1/2-inch nuts. One is over there. And now the top one. Alright, let that hang for now. Alright, so these are 2. One is for the cruise control, and one is a throttle cable. And you need 2 screws, 2 bolts here to take this off. These are 2 5/16 bolts here. Goes off. And that goes directly to the pedal. After I cut it, this came right off on the inside. Alright, so I pulled this out from behind the firewall up there on the inside. That held that piece in place. Now I can go outside and pull it out. And that comes off. Last thing on here on this gas pedal, just grab that and pull that out. Now this is what we got to put in. This is from Lokar. It's an LS throttle cable, 36-inch. That's the part number. And go ahead and open this up. Alright guys, now this is what we're going to do here. We're going to take this off this end. This goes onto the throttle body. So right in here there's a little set screw. So take that off. Okay. Now you can take this whole thing apart. Alright, now I want to do is get to this. So I'll pull this hole through here. Set this off the side. Now over here, there was a little E-clip here. I took it off on this end already. So this pin drops out. just take a little flathead and pop it out, and this comes out of here. So take this off. We're not going to use that. Now the old cable, if you remember, went like this. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use this cable to put it through here. Now this works. However, I want to be more secure because this is the gas pedal. I'm going to put a little washer there to make sure that doesn't go through, even though that works. So put the little washer. Put it through. And now that really isn't going anywhere, as you can see. And that's going to go through here now, like that. Okay, we're going to leave this like that. Now this piece here screws into the firewall. It sandwiches like that. However, it's a little bigger on the firewall than this. Actually, it's almost the same size, so I just want to reinforce that with a washer on both ends. Then we're going to tighten down like that. And the firewall is going to be between these washers. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the firewall. Then all we have to do is snake this cable through here. And snake it through here. And grab it with this at the end. And this is going to go on the LS engine, throttle body. So that's what the old throttle cable went through, remember? And this is going to go like that. And now that we have everything open here, I'm just going to put a washer and thread that nut in on the other side through here. So I put the washer on, now I got to put this on. It's a very delicate procedure right here. This is sort of like when I go in for the kill with Brianna at night.
Oh, wow.
And I caught it, baby. Who's your clown father?
Oh, wow. Good job, clown.
Now go make me a sandwich, alright?
All right.
Okay, now she's tight. I went inside the car actually with a deep socket and a long extension and put it on the other side to hold that nut. And over here we tighten it down. So we're good there. Alright, so Brianna helped me put the cable through the hole up there by putting her hand through here. Now this is all ready to go. Right through where it should be. And now this needs to mount right here. I'm going to tighten that down. Okay, so that's good. Okay, and the gas pedal is in, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, now we're going to put this whole bracket in place. The secret to this is have everything loose and make sure all the bolts go in their holes over here. And also, you can put a pry bar up here to move this up and out of the way. So you have enough room to push this whole bracket up, and you catch it with this bolt over here. So we just caught it. Alright, now to put this back in, I put the brake pedal in over here. I put the brake rod from the booster in there. Now up here, I pull this forward because sometimes this tends to bend out, and that's good. And what we're going to do is I'm going to catch the middle bolt as I push this up. Alright, so Brianna had to put the camera down for a second to help me push this up because I need a third hand. And it's just a matter of aligning everything, make sure the bolts go through everything. And this goes through here, that's very important. And catch the middle bolt. And that's good. Alright, so all 4 Nuts are in on the firewall over there. And this is the last one I got tightened down. And we're good on the firewall. Okay, now we're going to put the Firewall Grommet in. So I call all of them. And they're all tight. And my shaft is going back in, Brianna.
Oh, wow.
Bad boy back in.
You may need a hand, Clown.
It's the bottom hole. Not the top hole, the bottom hole.
You may need a hand with this big shaft, Clown. Mind if I jump in and help?
Alright, I'm gonna try to catch one first. Okay. Brianna, can you give me a hand here, please?
I thought so, Clown.
Thanks for lending me a hand, Brianna.
Anytime, Clown. It was a real pleasure. If any of you folks watching at home want a hand too.
Sorry guys, you have to excuse Brianna, she's been drinking tonight.
I'm a little drunk.
Alright. Alright, now it's in place. I'm just gonna put all the connectors back together. These all go only in certain spots. See? And the last one. Yeah, baby. It's everything. Now to get these in, you gotta push on the steering column in the front. And these have to drop into, you're pretty much putting a square peg in a square hole. So you can catch and you can tighten them. That's good. And this one, I also caught before. That's good. And now the front. Now put the bracket for the hood opener. And finally put the brake switch in. And that's good. Okay, now I mocked this up. This is kind of close to the steering shaft, so if we put the bolt in here for the steering column, the shaft is going to probably hit this. So what I want to do is I want to cut this screw over here so I can move a little bit forward, a little bit more this way. I'm going to do that now. Alright, now as you can see here, that should be enough space. Alright, now I'm going to make the hole for the steering shaft. That's about 2.5 inches to the side and 5 inches up. So I'm going to make that hole here. I'm going to push this on. Alright, so that's about 5 inches up and 2.5 inches over. And I'm just going to make a little X here to pop that shaft in. I'm also going to cut these screws here just to make the plate easier to put on and off. So go ahead and cut these. And that's everything. Alright, so I cut a hole here and it fits pretty nicely there. Now I'm just going to transfer this onto the template, and then we also have to make a hole for the clutch master. Can I transfer this hole onto the plate? Let's drill this hole, baby! Perfect hole, baby. And that hole's good. Another hole for the clutch master is going to be somewhere over here. So let's see. It's going to be around there. We also want enough room here for the pinch bolt that goes through the steering shaft. When it turns around, it doesn't hit the master. So I think we're going to be around there somewhere. And that's the second hole done. And that's going to get mounted over there somewhere, just like that. Now I'm going to drill some holes here to mount this plate. One is going to be over here, and I made sure on this side there's nothing in the way. So it's going to be right there. Alright, so we're done with the holes. We got 4 holes. Now we're going to transfer those to the sheet metal that we have. Okay, so I put the plate up against the firewall, and Brianna went inside with a marker and just did marked where the holes are going to be. So now I'm just going to make the holes. I already made 3 of them. One is over here. Put some butter sauce on here. Holes are done. Alright, so I got the plates here. I got Brianna's cream all over this second one here. Or should I say fluid film. Her own butter sauce. So that won't rust. This outer plate's stainless steel, so that's not going to rust. And we put the bolts through the firewall here. They're all sticking out. And now we put the plates on. Whoa, so I can do this with one hand. Some thread locker on this. Catch it. Okay, that caught. Alright, now we're tying these down. Alright, and we're done. Plate is in. Now mounting this could be a little tricky. Remember, we shortened the rod. We want the rod as short as possible because we want to lengthen it to adjust it later. Because this bore is a bigger bore than what you normally put in turbo coupe, which that's what the pedals are. The stroke is right, but the bore is bigger. So you're going to push more fluid. You want a shorter rod so you can adjust it out and get it where you want it. What you want to do is put this rod on the clutch and go back and forth to see where the angle is. You pretty much want the angle straight into this bore. So what we're going to do is, I already know about where I'm going to mount this. So it's going to be around here somewhere. Alright, so I'm going to mark the holes here, and I'm going to drill them there. And you could always slot them up and down. If you want to go up and down, get a better angle, which we might have to do. We also might have to grind this down a little bit to make a little more room for this boot. Alright, so we got the bolts in, put the master in. I'm going to try to grab that. Alright, so we put this on, we mounted it. We noticed when the clutch rod was being pushed in, it was binding on the master in here. So I took it off and I angled it higher up, and there was no binding when we did that. So it needs to be raised up about half an inch over here for this to work, to have a better angle. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this block off and I'm going to grind down half an inch here, so hopefully it'll move this up where we need it. So that's where we're at. Let's see what happens. I'm going to take half an inch off here, then I have to re-tap the threads going in here. And luckily we have about an inch of, it's drilled down an inch down here deep, so we could just tap the remaining threads down there. So I'm going to go ahead now and just grind this down. Let's do it! see if this will work. Okay, now we have to retap these holes. These are 516-18 thread, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of tap magic butter sauce on my tap over here. I have to try to get this exactly in the middle. And now the other side on top, there's no threads here at all, so we have to make our own threads here.
Real impressive, clown.
Well, not really. I'm a master of holes, Brianna. You should know this.
Oh, wow.
Alright, so we got some threads in there. That should catch. Put a little red thread locker on it too when you put it on. This should be good to go. Alright, now over here, the bottom bolt hole on the tilt-in master, we put a 13/64 drill bit in there just to make it longer, because this angle of this stud is pointing down a little bit. So that actually looks pretty good. I'm going to go bolt this onto the firewall, see how it is. Okay, now we got to cut the sleeve too, so to shorten it, so let's do that. And that threads right in. Remember, this side over here is a left-hand thread. I'm going to cut off a little bit at the end over here. Alright baby, so we just put the bolts into the firewall this way, and we press the clutch, and everything is bind free, baby. Smooth as silk. Go inside and press the clutch, Brianna.
Ready, clown?
Do it. Look at that. It's awesome. It's a beautiful thing. So this damn thing is mounted. We just took some finagling to get it right. She's all done and pretty, boys. Alright folks, now we're putting the cam member in. We got a nice tubular cam member from our friends over from AJE Suspension. And you could go visit them at ajesuspension.com. This is what it looks like. This looks like a nice piece. This particular one is for a 79-04 Mustang. It comes with installation instructions. We got the spring purchase for it. Retain your old clay member bolts. We're going to reuse those. We got hardware for the rack and pinion that we're going to put back on. We got motor mounts for the engine. This on the engine side, the plates, and they slip right here. They have bushings on them already, which is pretty sweet. We have a transmission cross member right here. We have also the rear trailing arms, the control arms, upper and lower, and the hardware for those. So let's put these in. Alright, so we're going to put the K member in. Give me a hand there, Brianna.
Alright, here we go.
Okay. And the spring pushers are going underneath over here, like that.
Holy hell. These are some big bolts, man.
Can you find the hole, Brianna?
Oh.
Or do you need help?
Whew.
That's it. And now put the back bolts on. Put everything in loose. Don't tighten it down yet. Alright, so we snug down all the bolts. The front big bolts, the 4 big bolts, over here are going to be 89 foot-pounds torqued down to, and the back are going to be 70 foot-pounds. So let's crank her down. Woo! Woo! Yeah. Woo. And we're all done. Now put the control arm in. We paint the control arm. We put new ball joints on them and new bushings on them. So get this in there. Just like that. Put this back in. Okay, now we torque these down to 150. One thing to note, I'm keeping the control arm straight because you want to torque this down as if the car was sitting on its weight. So I'm going to go ahead and torque this down.
Wow, Clan, that's a big pipe.
I know you like my pipe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, baby. And we're done. Okay, now we're using stock springs here. Usually when you put stock springs in, they bow out and they're really compressed. So we're going to cut about 1-2 coils off to put this in, and that should be perfect. A spring like this, see where you try to sit down and it falls over? This is called a tangential spring. And as you can see here, if you cut this here, it's going to look the same as here. There's no difference. If it's a pigtail, if it's shorter on top or on the bottom, you can't cut that. Or if it's a square cut, you can't cut it. So we're going to cut the one over here where I made the mark, just straight up. And when I do that, I have some cold water over here so it doesn't warm up the spring. Go ahead and cut that. Got the rubber isolator on top. The bottom end of the coil goes between 2 holes in the bottom of the perch over here on the control arm. That's how you index it. So it can sit right. And this should go right in. Just like that. And you see the 2 holes? The end of the spring should sit right there. So we properly indexed. A little tip here, you see the hole? So when you go put the cotter pin in, it's kind of crammed against the rotor or the spindle. What you would do is just put a little punch in there and straighten it out. I'll put a jack underneath the control arm, jacked up just a tiny bit. Now we can put the spindle on. You have to finagle it in. And that's in. Put the nut on. We're going to tighten that down later. And now we can put the shock in here. Put the nuts and the bolts through there. Alright, so I jacked this up. I'm going to go on top. I'm going to put the bushing and the metal washer and the nylock on top. And just tighten it down for now. Later on I'm going to go up there and give it the beans. Alright, tighten that down. clean this bad boy up. Alright, I'm not going to show too much of this. This is just brake work. I'm going to put the rotor on, tighten on the bearing, the tapered bearing. And that's it for now. Alright, so is the suspension done? We tightened the nuts on top where the shocks are. Still got to put the rack on, the sway bar on. So we have a little more work here to do. Alright, so we're going to change the rear control arms, upper, lower. We got new springs. We're also going to change the shocks. So I'll just show you real quick how we can do this. This over here, you open up the trunk, and there's a nut on top of this shock, and we took that out. It's a 14 millimeter. Now over here, it's 17 millimeter in the back, and this is an 18 millimeter in the front. Take this off. And that comes right out. Next step, low control arm bolts. Alright, now put the jack underneath here where the control arm end is and knock this out. Now lower the control arm. You release the tension off the spring. You can take the spring off. Now you can just pull on this and the spring should come right out. Also take this out. Now take this end of the low control arm off. And now you pull the bolt through here, and this whole control arm comes out. Alright, now jack up this side again. I do want to mention, it's a good idea just to do this one side at a time, so everything else on your side is attached, and you just play around with this side. So now I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And you grab the bolt, and you pull it out. Now top. And take that off, and this whole upper control arm comes right out. Alright, so we're not going to put any preload on this. So what we have to do is we're going to match up the length. So match up with the bolt holes here. And just turn it until everything matches up. Alright, so once you're done, you can just run these up. But I'm going to leave them a little loose. You might have to tweak them a little bit on the car. You can also do this just by turning this back and forth to extend it or shorten it. I'm going to put this on the car. I'm going to use some of my favorite butter sauce, silicone lube, on the bushing here, and also on this bushing here, so it can go on nice and smoothly. Okay, now I'm just going to tighten this down and tighten them down. And now top. I'm going to use some butter sauce on the bushings, also butter sauce on the shackles we're going to go into. Okay, this you just got to pop that and it goes right on. Put the rubber isolator on top and put it in place. Alright, make sure the spring is sitting on the perch on the lower and on top, and then just put a jack over here and raise this bad boy in place. Alright, so we gave some love taps in the back also, on the rear end with the mallet, and this actually lined up, and we pried it over with a lighting pin, and it went right where it's supposed to be. So, pop this in. Now tying this down. In the back. Okay, now I'm just going to put the shock back in. Alright, so everything's in. The shock is bolted up. Upper control arm's in. The low control arm's in. The spring is in. And that's what everything looks like over here. We're eventually going to put a 9-inch in here, but not yet. That might be a year down the line. We're gonna put a 9-inch back here. So that's pretty much it for the rear end over here. Alright, now I'm gonna drop the gas tank because we're gonna make our own custom fuel lines. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the stock lines. Alright, we're gonna drop the gas tank. These are 13mm bolts over here, for the two straps. I got my helper Brianna helping me out here. Once the tank goes down, we're gonna slide it, the fill neck out of it. So go ahead and do that.
Oh shit, you got it?
Okay, move it towards you.
It's coming out.
Gotta get the filler neck out. Slide her out. Almost there. Oh! And she's out, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of finagling to get that out. So we're trying to wiggle this out of here. And I'm just gonna put some tape here for now, so nothing falls in there. Alright, now that we're up here, take this connector off, just like that. Get some air, clean this out over here. She's a crusty, so I'm just gonna spray a little bit of Croil, my butter sauce on here, just to get this working, sliding right. Use a brass punch with a rubber mallet so you get no sparks. Whoa. Did I get you in the face, Brianna?
Oh wow, yeah.
That's what we're working with. Cut the fuel line. Cut it on this side too. Cut these here too. What the hell? We're in a cutting frenzy, right, Brianna?
Oh wow, yeah, wow.
Got the fuel pump wires here. 10mm bolts. Now just pop these clips off. Alright, take that one off too, so those fuel lines come right out. And that's the last one. Have some gas spill out. Always a good time when there's gas around.
Oh yeah, I love gasoline.
I'm gonna cut these here. And these lines will come right out. Yeah, baby. And up here, just pull the fuel lines out from the engine bay. And all the fuel lines are out. Alright, now we took these plastics off. These are just Phillips screws, all these things. And this one here is a Phillips screw over here. And I ran a 10-gauge wire. I just pulled this up a little bit with a pry bar. I snaked it under. And I followed, there's a nice thick cable here that goes to the rear defrost. So I followed that and I routed it along there in the back, and I'll show you where that goes. And this is for the fuel pump power. This is a 10-gauge wire. I want to run a new one. So right here I could just screw this down, put everything, the plastic back where it was, and I'm just gonna pull this wire to the front. Alright, so like I said, I'm following this wire here. There's also clips that this goes into. These clips over here. And I'm putting it in there. And I'm just going to leave all the wire here for now until we figure out the wiring. So that's where the power wire came through in the trunk. And I'm just going to tape this along that black wire. And there's a rubber grommet here in the trunk. You just pull that out. And this is the harness that goes to the fuel sending unit. This is ground, this black wire, and this is power for the fuel pump, and these are for the level sensor. So I'm just going to take these out of this grungy 40-year-old loom here. Alright, so I'm going to cut this power wire for the fuel pump, and I'm just going to splice it into this pink wire here, right there, and also run this through the grommet. I'm also going to cut the black wire. I'll cut it a little further up. Alright, so this grommet just pops out, like I said, from the trunk. We're going to cut the pink wire and the black wire cutting. Now I'm going to use a drill bit here with the drill, and I'm going to drill through this grommet to put the power wire through. Alright, now put this through. And that looks pretty good. We're just going to put the power cord wire through here. The ground we're going to run underneath. So that's it. Alright, now strip these. Twist. Now I'm only going to show this once on camera. Whenever I make connections, this is how it's going to be. Electrical connections. You strip it, you twist it, and stick it, and also stick this one in on the other side, and now crimp it down. And now tug, you're good. Now use fire. Now whenever you're doing wiring on the outside of the car, it should always be weathertight. So these are the best connectors to use. That's good. And this is the ground wire, but this wire is going underneath the car. So this is pretty much done here. We're just going to tape this up now. Alright, so wrapped up the wires. Now this goes back down. And we're pretty much done in the trunk. Put this grommet block back through. That's good. So that's the fuel pump we're putting in. It's a part number 11540. It's an aeromotive pump. And this is a 340 pump. It's 340 liters per hour. That's what it looks like. And the first thing we're going to do here is we got a new sending unit because we didn't like the lines out of this one. They were kind of rotted in certain spots. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reuse this. We're going to reuse these wires. I got to take this old fuel pump out. I got to modify the bottom base over here and put the aeromotive pump in. And we're going to flare these out a little bit because we're going to use hoses here. Because my customer is a little cheap, doesn't want to put nice
Hey,
hoses
clown,
on there.
be nice.
Mm-hmm. Let me take this pump off. And this comes right off. And I'm gonna cut these here also. Alright, so one thing to note, you gotta have that vapor purge hole not blocked. And the other thing I'm gonna do here is this sorta kinda is too short. So I'm just gonna trim a little excess off here. Probably right there. Have enough for a clamp up there. So I'm going to cut that off. Okay, now sand down the rough edge. I also put a round file in here. And once I'm done with everything, I'm going to blow everything out with some compressed air. Put the hose that they supply you with on here. And this one's going to be a little short. Also, for a little more extra protection, in this case I'm just going to cut this to have a little window for that vapor purge port. So there's no way that's going to get covered. Okay, now insert this in the hole. Just like that. And push this through on the bottom. It's going to be a tight fit. Woo! That's pretty much how it's going to sit. Tighten down these clamps. It needs to tighten down. Okay, now we're going to do the wiring. I'm going to cut the harness off the aeromotive pump. And I'm going to connect it onto the stock wiring here. Don't forget to put the insulating sleeve on. That's it. I left a lot of wire on here, so if you want to change the pump again, we just cut it over here and reconnect them. Now this is going to be the return line, and we're taking this nipple off. Leave that open just like that. Okay, we ran into a little issue here. This won't clip in place because this won't let it, so I have to grind this little open, more open, so I could slide this through and clip onto the pump over here. Alright, so I cut a piece of it, and now when I stick this on, it'll be good. I just gotta clean this up with a carbide bit. And now, try to push this on. Try to pull it off. It's actually good there. So we're going to use this fuel injection hose from Gates. It's Barricade fuel injection hose 3/8, and it's up to 225 psi. It's one of the best hoses they make. The issue here now will be, as you can see here, this is smaller than here. So if we put this on here, there's a lot of play. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut it here, and it'll be a much tighter fit. And I'm going to mushroom the end over here, make a little lip, so we can put the fuel injection hose clamps on there. And these are the hose clamps we're going to use. And we do the same thing here. This is 3/8, this is 5/16. So I'm just going to cut it here and cut this here. I also cut this over here. Use a deburring tool to deburr the inside. Then use some sandpaper. Should be good. I'm putting a screwdriver here on the return line. I'm going to bend it up so I can flare it. And crank down on it. Alright, so I got a little bit of a lip here. I also put on the wire brush just to get a little bit of edge off, so that's actually pretty good. The hose clamp should hold on to that tightly. And this is a 3/8 side. Alright, so we're going to blow this out with compressed air, and we're going to put this on. Alright, now pop this in. There's two tabs here, 1, 2, and this should line up with these tabs here. 1, 2, and don't forget the rubber ring here. Put the level float in first, and this should go in just like that. And it's on. I like to spray some lube around this ring just to be able to get this lock ring to slide a little bit. And let's start this. And it's good. Okay, we're going to use this, the factory vent. We're going to just pop this off. And I'm going to put a 5/16 line on here. This also acts as a check valve. Say, God forbid, the car rolls over. It's not going to let any fuel out of here. Interesting fact, the Ford Lightning also uses this as a vent. So, put this on here. Tug, it's good. Alright, so we're going to end this over here. So I'm going to put this on later on here for the vent, a little filter, and just a union. Put the 5/16 line on. Now put the 3/8 hose on the feed tube. It's a tight fit, Brianna.
Wow, clown, that's tight.
Pay attention. This is how it should be. And you're good. Okay, I'm going to put some silicone lube over here on the hole. We also sprayed this too. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to put the tank up. We're going to slide it in here. Slide it, push it up in place, and put the straps on. Put this connector on. Push. There you go. Yeah, going. Nice. Straps. Alright, push it up. As you can see, there's tons of space up there. Now I'm going to tighten down the straps. And we're good. Okay, now for the vent. And that's good. Zip tie this over here, and the vent is done. Alright, there's a hole here, and we're going to put the harness for the sending unit in there with one of these clips. Yeah, baby. Alright, so I'm going to follow the factory routing. Alright, now over here I have a ground wire for the fuel pump and the two fuel lines, and we're going to mount the fuel filter here. So I'm going to grind this down to have a nice clean surface for ground, to ground the fuel filter and the fuel pump. Nice and clean, baby. So I put a terminal on here for the pump ground. I'm going to put some silicone paste, aka the electric grease, over here. So there's been a change in plan, guys. We took this pump out. Reason being, we're going to put a fuel filter that has a regulator in it already, as opposed to having an external standalone regulator. So that fuel filter we're going to use now, we need a 255 liter pump instead of this 340 pump. Using a 340 pump will build up excess pressure and ruin your fuel pump. So let me show you now what we're going to go with. So this is the fuel pump we're going with. It's 255 liter per hour from TI Automotive, and that's the part number right there. So we're just going to go ahead and quickly swap this out. It also comes with the stuff that you need. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So this is the fuel filter we're going to use. This is a Corvette filter. This is Wix part number 33737, and this comes with a fuel regulator, pressure regulator built inside. That's the feed to the engine, and you have a 5/16 return line and a 3/8 feed line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to flare both ends so we can put hoses over them. The only thing is changing this every time, you don't want to do that, so we're just doing it for now so we get the hoses on there. But we're probably going to get an adapter here to change this into a hose barb end. I did both sides. There you go. It's nice. Alright, now put these hoses on. Okay, now we're going to put the ground from the fuel pump. I'll put an eyelet on it. And I'm going to put it through here. And put it through the frame here. Alright, so for this fuel filter, you need one of these push fittings, the GM style. We're going to use a 3/8 copper nickel line, and we have the tool right here to do that with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so just in case you guys want to know what tool I'm using, it's a Master Tool Kit, part number 71475. And it comes with this setup here. It's really nice. So get this straight flush with this block, this die. And then this goes in here and tighten this down, but you got to make this flat with the block. And this is the piece we're going to use over here. It goes right here. Hold on. Oh, there you go. And roll it forward, take up the slack, and now go ahead and squeeze it. Now release the pressure. You can also put some grease in there to help prevent this. So I'm just going to whack this off. There you go. Perfect every time, baby. I put some silicone lube on there, and now push this in. Just like that. Snaps right in. And now we're going to bend this over this way and go along the frame, the end of the frame of the car over here. Put a clamp right there. Alright, now to the front over here, I'm going to pop this off so you get access to run the fuel line up here the stock way. Alright, so there's some screws here underneath over here, some plastic push pins, rivets, and this comes out like that, and that should give us enough room to go from underneath. Alright, so the factory fuel lines went through here, up into the wheel well and now out the top. I'm going to take this 8mm bolt out so I could fit the fuel line through here. So that's where it's going to go, where that brake line goes. So I'm going to feed a line through there. Just like factory, baby. Just like factory. That's what it looks like under here. And I'm just going to bend this by hand and push it as close to the body as I can. Alright, so we ran out of gravel guard. So we just cut this 3/8 hose. We're going to put it over here. So we just used whatever we had in the shop here. Just going to run this up so it can protect the fuel line. Yeah, baby. Alright, so now I'm just going to put these back on. And that's it. Okay, so this is the end result. This is what it looks like. It's coming through here, going down this way. Then over here, it's going up this way, up into the wheel well. I'll show you what it looks like in the engine bay. And that's where it comes out from the top. There's a nice hole over there, nicer than Brianna's.
Oh, wow.
That's right. And we're just going to cut this flare with AN flare and just put a tube nut sleeve and connect the line going to the fuel rail. So that's done for now. So our old power steering rack was leaking and we ended up buying this new piece from LMR. Now we're going to go ahead and get this thing ready for installation. Alright, now the first thing you got to do to this rack is make sure it's centered. I'm all the way to the right. They usually come centered, but I like to double check it anyway. So this is straight up pretty much, locked to the right, and count the number of revolutions to when it locks to the left. So it's 1, 2, and a half. So now what you want to do is you want to go 1 1/4 to the right, and that's going to be in the middle. So 1 1/4. Be somewhere there. So now once you do that, make a line over here just to make sure it doesn't turn on you when it's on the car. So we also got new tie rod ends, and I aligned the bolt holes, where the bolts go on both of these, just to make sure we get the size of the tie rod, back and forth, make sure it's the correct distance. And I'm just going to put these on now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these down until this one comes up to here. And the same thing on this side. That one comes up to here. Then I'm going to tighten these down. I'm going to put it on the car. I'm going to get this thing aligned. The first thing we're going to do is get this aligned too once we get the car on the road. Alright, so I measured also from the middle of the bolt hole up to here, 19.5. So we're pretty much one more turn, and I think that should be good. Let's go do the other side now. Alright, and this side should be in the same vicinity also as the old one. Yep. Put this bolt in, let's put a washer on this side, then put the nut in the back, and tighten this down. And same thing on this side. Alright, now put the tie rods in. I like to jack these up a little bit, just because these like to spin. Put the cotter pin in. Put the Zerk fitting in. Grease it until it comes out the sides a little bit. And she's good. Now let's put the sway bar back in.
Wow, Clan, that's crusty.
I know. It's alright. The car is shit stained anyway.
Wow, true.
And that's done. Alright, now the end links. Washer, bushing and washer, then spacer. Bushing, washer, then spacer. Washer, then bushing. That nipple piece goes on top. And now shove this underneath. Then bushing, then washer. You got this, Brianna?
I'm lost, Clown.
Then nut right on top. And now tighten her down. And now they're both tight sway bars in. We're putting this Borgenson steering shaft in. Part number 000656, and it's kind of short right now, so what we're doing is we're loosening these set screws and these nuts here and pulling this stuff out a little bit just so we get a little extra length on this. Take that off. We'll do the same thing on this side. Alright, so I got everything where I want them. It's pretty much all maxed out. But I'm going to leave the bottom one loose so I can tighten it on the car. And I'm putting Loctite in here. And also Loctite on the nut over here when I put this on. So I'm going to go ahead and just tighten all these down. I'm going to grind down these heads a little bit here because they're very, very close to the clutch master. Not a big deal, just a little bit just to clearance it. Pop this in the hole, give it some love taps. Now put the bolt on top. And nut on the bottom. Alright, now I tighten that down and it's hitting the clutch master. So I'm just going to cut this tip off and we should be good. Alright, I measured with the dowel caliper how much I need to cut off. I just drove the nut down, so when I cut this off, when I back up the nut, it's going to straighten out the threads. And I'm going to cut about where I marked it, about 2.5 threads. Alright, so I grinded down these heads and this head. So now when you turn it, look at that. Look at all that clearance, baby. We got clearance, Clarence. Alright, now with the shaft, the problem we're encountering is everything is maxed out here on this shaft and it seems like it's too short. See, it doesn't engage all the splines all the way. So we have to order a new shaft and cut it to size. So this is down here. So we got this shaft. It's part number 409418 from Borgeson. And what we're going to do is we're going to go 2 inches bigger than the old one. And if it needs a little trim down, we could trim it down. It's about there. So I'm going to cut it right there. Alright, so it's good there. We have full engagement. And this shaft is engaged also with these set screws. So I'm just going to make a mark there so I can know where this goes. The thing now is the header has to go in first, then this. So I gotta take this out and we're gonna put the header in. Alright guys, now we put the engine in and this header in on the driver's side just because we wanted to see what clears, just to mock it up. We're gonna show you later, us actually putting the engine in. I want to see, because whenever you put something where it doesn't belong, stuff always hits and so nothing ever works out. So this driver's side header is a little close to the clutch master reservoir up here. So I made a little outline over here with a marker. I got to dimple this number 7 primary tube on the header a little bit. Not a big deal. I thought it would be worse than it is. The steering shaft clears. I put that in place. The hydraulic line clears. That's not a problem either. So I'm really happy with how everything's sitting over here. The only other issue is I had to cut this speedometer cable and I'm going to take it off here. This was in the way. We're not going to use this because we're going to use the OBD2 connector probably for a speedometer, for a dash. We'll show you that when we get it. That's the plan anyway for now. That could also change. The next thing that we got to do here is, you see over here, this brake line, that's got to move down. Because it's right on the header right now, so that's not a big deal. We're going to move that down. And the other thing that we got to do here is, over here, you see I could put my finger here. I don't like that, because if we put a header bolt here, it's going to actually hit the clutch master. That's another issue. And also, not a big deal. What I think we're going to do is I'm going to slap the side here. You can just push this flange in and tighten it down. And I also got to shave this down a little bit. So I could put a bolt, and the bolt should come out to here, somewhere here. So I'm going to show you when I do that too. Okay, now we have the header out, the engine's back out. These are Spin Engineering LS Mustang swap headers. So I marked over here where this needs to get dimpled. again over here, I'm going to grind this down probably to halfway thickness of this. And also make a slot here so we could just slide this header in place. So I'm going to go ahead and try to dimple this in now. Alright, so we heated that up. Alright, so we did a pretty good number on it. And remember, you're not going to lose much by doing that, if anything at all. So now that should clear nicely. We're also going to wrap that when we put it in. Alright, so here, as you can see the black line over there, I'm going to grind this down until this is the head. When you put this in, it's flush with this. And I'm also going to slot it over here. So we could just slide in the header like this and it'll go on. So I'm going to do those two things. Now we put the bolt in. It goes shave down the bolt a little bit too, the head. Alright, so this goes in nicely and also gives us enough room for that master clutch over there. So we're going to dry fit everything before we wrap this also. Now we're going to go ahead and do the modifications to the brake line and the body of the car. Alright, so two things here. Got to grab this brake line and bend it down because the header was hitting it, and try to whack this lip in this way because that was also hitting the header a little bit. So I'm just going to grab this and bend it down. I'm going to use my air gat here to push this in. And now I got pliers, small pliers, they fit in here nicely. I could just bend this over. Alright, so I'm going to hit this with some spray paint. It's pretty flat now. We're going to do an engine mock-up with the header in and see how it fits in there. Alright, so we got this bolt kit from ICT Billet for LS engine mounts, and we're going to put these brackets from AJE on here. We painted Ford blue.
Wow, Clown! Ford blue on a GM engine.
That's right. Makes total sense, right?
No. Wonder who the idiot did that.
Okay, now over here, this is how these go. You can only catch three bolts, and there's a weld over here, and that goes on the fourth bolt. But so we're just going to catch three here. And the plates are done. Okay, we're going to take the old cooler line out now and put a black off plate on there. The black off plate is ICT Billet also. Seems like they make everything for these LS engines. So pop that on there and put this on. And you're good. Before we put the engine in also, it's, we're going to snip the speedometer cable. Oh yeah. Okay, the header's in place. The header has to go in with the motor. Stop. Forward. Forward a little bit. Stop. Alright, so we made a little boo-boo. We just noticed that the plates aren't sitting right. Before we had the plates, the left was on the right, right was on the left. So this long piece of the plate should go on the back. Now these plates didn't come with instructions, so we caught it just in time before we lowered this down. This is how they go. It's actually going to make the motor sit further forward. So it's good that we caught this now. It's been a long day, right, Brianna?
Oh yeah, Glenn.
It's good. Alright, so I'm holding the header in place with one hand, trying to guide the motor in with the other, and also I put some silicone spray on the mounts, the motor mounts. Alright, guide her in, Brianna. Slowly, 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 stop. Go down. Wait. Down a little bit. Alright, hold on. Alright, taking a lining pin and align the engine. There you go. Well, we just discovered the great news now is with the brake lines out of the way, the steering shaft out of the way, pretty much everything cleared. These headers go in easily from the bottom, which is great news. So now we probably just let the engine in here, sit, and we could finagle. We need to finagle over here. Yeah, go down. Right. Right. It's almost in. There you go. Alright, this side is almost in. Same thing. Grab the engine. Now there's different ways of doing this. I like to use an aligning pin sometimes just to align it. Or you could use a pry bar into here, wiggle it up and down to get it close. Or sometimes just grab the whole engine and manhandle it in. Okay. You right there, Brianna?
No, Glenn. I think I shit myself.
There you go. Woo! She's in! Alright, so what we did here was we turned this over. We loosened this over here. And turned this, clocked it over here. And we got this hose. This is a special hose from Pegasus Racing. This is for a master cylinder. And we're going to pop that on there. Then this is from Tick Performance. This we're going to put right here. There's already a hole in here for it. I just got to drill one hole. Then this will mount right there. And we'll put this hose right on here. Perfect. Tighten that down. Put the hose on. Oh, Brianna, it's not going in.
Wow, Glenn, you seem to have grown.
Oh, she's tight. Brianna, she's tight.
Wow.
And it's on, baby. This side over here. Oh, yeah. Alright, so we're back at this again. We loosened everything up. We put the header in place. We mocked it up. It seemed like it was kind of close to the header. So we put some heat wrap over here, a sleeve. And we're going to put some heat wrap around this thing. And put the clamp around that and tighten that down. So, you know, the thing with this thing is you got to mock up, put it back together, take it back apart, and see how it looks. So that's the name of the game, baby. Alright, so we're just wrapping stuff. I don't think you guys need to see that. Over here, We put the wrap around it first, then we put the metal ring around it and tighten that down. We're wrapping down the brake lines over here. Make sure they're all out of the way. Go ahead and wrap the header before we put that on. So for the header over here, where we knocked it in, I'm just going to wrap it a little bit, probably up to here somewhere. We're going to use this exhaust wrap, and I'm going to use these steel zip ties. One on top over here, and one on the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, put a zip tie here and a zip tie at the end, and grab my favorite tool in my toolbox, my dikes, and snap them off at the ends over there. And this is pretty much done. So we're using Remflex gaskets. These are part number 2008. These are really good. These are solid graphite. Sometimes when you knock in a primary tube, it warps the header flange a little bit, which happened to ours just slightly at the end. So that's why we're using these. To get this header in, we had to take the motor mount off here and raise the engine in the back up a little bit to clear this master so we could put this bolt in back here. And I'm going to put this header gasket in just like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in at the end over here now that it clears the master. And remember, the header is slotted, so once this bolt is in, all you have to do is just loosen it and slide the header out. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that bolt back there. Alright, now I pulled the header up from underneath the car, and you can just slide this in. Like that. Alright, so we put the motor mount bolt in, we load the engine down a little bit. That back bolt is pretty tight. And now we're going to put the header bolts in, tightening from the inside going out. Alright, so the headers are in. This what it looks like. This header was easy peasy, just went right in. Also remember, when you're putting the bolts in, wiggle and jiggle the headers. So you grab a couple of threads by hand first, so you don't cross thread the bolts. And over here, as you can see over here, this worked nicely. Slotting it and grinding it down. Now this header bolt, the head of this header bolt is even flush with this flange over here, and we have a lot of clearance between that and the clutch master. The only thing now is this is laying on it a little bit. But when we put the transmission in, it's going to raise the rear of this engine up because we didn't tighten the bolts for the motor mounts yet. We can do that after we put the trans in. So that's what it looks like so far, baby. Woo! Alright, so I figured since the car is up now, let me show you what else happened down here. What else we did. Well, we're going to dent the header to clear this bolt for the motor mount, but we didn't. We just spaced out we put some washers in the front of the head of the bolt to move the bolt back a little bit, and we just ran that through, and that's good actually over there. What else we did was we bent the brake lines over, and that clears. And also the frame that we whacked it in, that clears too, the header. Now let me show you what it looks like under here for the master. Now the engine has no transmission in it, but it's going to sit a little higher, and as you can see, when you go a little higher, it's going to come off the master right now. So that's not a problem, everything clears. The only thing I gotta do now is put the line for the clutch master in and the steering shaft. The steering shaft is all cut and ready, so you guys saw me do that. I'm just gonna put that in, then I'm gonna put the clutch line in. But put the clutch line in first. Pop this back in. Now tighten that down. And that's done. Alright, now I'm just gonna put the steering shaft in. Everything's separate, so this goes in first. And I'm going to put the shaft in and the collar on top too. Alright, everything's in place. I'm just going to tighten down these set screws on all of them, and we should be good. Alright, so this whole shaft is done, and that's the whole thing installed. Make sure when you do this also, you go from lock to lock, left and right with the steering wheel, to make sure nothing hits or binds anything. Now we're going to put the pilot bearing inside the hole. This is what the pilot bearing looks like. This is how it's going to go in on a T56. So I have a seal driver. That's the same size as the diameter. That's the diameter of this bearing. You can also put a socket on here to put this in. Just whack the socket. So let me just start this. Hit it until it's flush with the end of the crank snout. Perfect, baby. This is the flywheel we're using. This is a regular GM flywheel. So first thing we gotta do here is spray this down with brake cleaner and clean it on both sides. By the way, this is an Ls7 flywheel, in case you were wondering. I know Brianna was wondering about that.
Oh yeah. Wow, it's shiny.
Pay attention, Brianna.
Very shiny.
Alright, let's go mount this bitch. Take the flywheel. Put it on. Should go right there. Cool feature of these bolts. They have thread locker on them already. These are hardened 10.9 bolts. So go ahead now and torque these down. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque these down to 15 foot-pounds first, then 37, then 74 foot-pounds. I'm going to go to a crisscross start pattern when I do that. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, now to get the last torque spec on this is 74 foot-pounds. I put a breaker bar in the front to hold the motor in place, and Brianna was holding it. Then over here, after I did each one, I marked it with a marker. I know this one's the last one to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. You holding it, Brianna?
Oh yeah.
Hold it, hold it. Alright, and we're good. We're done. A big shout out to Jason from Diamond Clutch at diamondclutch.com. He hooked us up with this nice clutch and pressure plate setup here. I'm going to get ready to install this on the car. I'm also going to clean this with brake parts cleaner, and also clean the surface of the flywheel again from us touching it with brake parts cleaner. It sort of goes flush in the middle. Keep that there for now. Just so you know, it comes also with the shim and the pilot bearing tool and the pilot bearing, but we had our own, so we have to use that. Now clean this with some brake parts cleaner. Okay, line the dowels with the holes on this thing. So you got one there and one there. Alright, so I put all the bolts in. This one here, the dowel, it's like halfway in. I'm just going to drive it in once I tighten down the bolts. Alright, now be careful as you tighten this pressure plate down, it's going to fix the clutch in place. Now you want it where the tool is easy to go in and out just like that. Okay, you might have to center it, move it around and center it. So that's pretty good there. I'm just going to tighten it down over there. Now we're going to do 52 foot-pounds. We're going to do a cross, like a star pattern. There you go, and we're done. Alright, now we're going to put the bell housing on here. There's two dowels that go in here, one here and one here. So, that in. I have to just keep my fingers where the dowel's supposed to be. And it's in. I'm just gonna drive it in with the bolts now. Alright, put these bolts in. Put a little bit of thread locker on them. Alright, so I slung them all down. Now these are torqued down to 37 foot-pounds. Oh yeah, that felt good. Right, Brianna?
Oh yeah.
Okay, the first measurement we're going to do for the slave cylinder clearance is the face of this bell housing to the end of this clutch fingers here. And that measurement is 2.249. We're putting this slave cylinder on. Alright, now we're going to take this off. What you gotta do is you gotta take these tabs off here. So you pop it off like that, all around. Just go around, all the way around and do that. I think there's one more here. Now you can push this in. Wait, I missed one. Missed one on the bottom. Push the spring in. This pops right out. Just like that. And this, you just finagle it around and this comes off. Now we're going to put this back in. Put all the tabs, align them, it snaps back in. And now when you put this in, push this all the way back. That's the reason why you're taking the spring out. You want to measure from here to distance to here. Okay, now the second measurement here is the face of the transmission to the face of the bearing. And it's 1.928. So the 2.249 for the bell housing minus the 1.928 for the slave cylinder, we come up with 0.321. And we're going to put a 0.120 shim in there, which is what's recommended by Diamond. And our remaining clearance is 0.201, which is pretty good, so I'm happy with that. So this shim I'm going to put in here, it's 0.120. Again, this is recommended for this setup. If you have a different setup, this might not be right for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten this down and put the spring back in here. Alright, so I took this off. Now over here, for the speed bleeder that they give you from TIC, they give you a washer. This washer goes here, because this isn't deep enough for this flare to meet the inside flare, as you can see on this one. Right? So that's very important. That goes right over there. Tighten that down. Yeah, that's good. If you don't put that there, you're gonna have a leak, and you gotta pop the whole transmission back out. And now put this on, and tighten that down. All right, you're good. So this is from TIC Performance also. This is a shifter. That's the part number right there. This is for 93 to 02 Camaro Firebird. And this is what it looks like. This is a real nice piece. And they gave you a bronze bushing here to replace over here where the ball goes. So I'm going to go ahead and install this right now. Pop this plastic bushing out. And put this one in. You're going to have to tap that in there. It's in here. Put a socket on there. That's good. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit of lithium grease in here. So shout out to TIC Performance. This is an amazing shifter. Very good build quality. There's a little gasket here too, so you even have to put a gasket on this. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm gonna put a little bit of blue thread locker and pop these in. Okay, these are all tight. Now one other thing you can do here, before you put this on, you can also fill this up with fluid over here. But we don't have fluid, we're going to do that later, but you can also do that. Alright, now to figure out where to make the hole. So from the middle over there, all the way to the middle where the shifter is, it's about 24 inches. So I did the same measurement here, from the top over here, all the way to this X is 24 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill a hole straight up with the drill bit, see where it lands inside the car. I'm gonna make inside, then I'm going inside the car and make a hole in there. Alright, so that's where it came out over there. I'm just gonna make a little square box over here. Alright, Brianna, you ready?
Oh yeah, drill me.
Alright. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
It's a beautiful hole.
Wow.
Don't be jealous, Brianna.
What a hole.
Alright, now pop this out. Alright, so let's put this trans in. Nothing's... Okay, so we're gonna make a cut here to square this out. And over here we're gonna see maybe we could like hit it in to dent it because it's kind of close over there. So there's still stuff we have to do here. Mock up and fit, trial fits. Alright, so we popped the transmission out. We made a little better of a hole here. There's a plate's gonna go on top of it, so we're gonna try to pre that up later on. One thing to note also, this bleeder screw, make sure you loosen it, or else sometimes this might give you a little tension here, and this won't push in. So we had that loosened. And also over here, we took out the skip shift solenoid because we're not going to use that. We're going to put a block off plate here. That was also hidden in the transmission tunnel, we noticed. So that's out of the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. Time to go back in. Make sure also over here, this line is in between these two tabs over here, so you don't kink it.
Alright, push in.
Push in or pump?
Push in. Yeah, alright, now pump. Oh, yeah. There's a little tiny bit to go.
Get a push.
She's in. She is in, baby.
Yeah, baby. Woo! Now the transmission to bell housing bolts. My little trick is you put a socket and extension, you put that in there, and go ahead and thread this in. Okay, that's caught. I'm just gonna go around and tighten everything else. Alright, now I'm torquing all these bolts down to 37 foot-pounds. So this is AJE's transmission cross member. So we went to the hardware store, we picked up some grade 8 bolts, put through here. But now we have to drill the holes on the brackets on the car to put these in. So let me show you. As you can see, it won't fit in the hole. So just make this a little bigger. It's perfect, baby. Okay, so transmission's jacked up. Alright, so now we tried putting this in, but it won't go in because the transmission is hitting the tunnel. You got a bolt over here where my finger is. I don't know if you can see that. It's hitting the tunnel. Same thing on this side. So we're just gonna go ahead and try to massage the tunnel a little bit, bang it in to make a little more clearance for those those bolts over there. I'm gonna use my smoothing hammer here just to dent this up a little bit over here to make some room. Alright, so banging the tunnel up, it worked a little bit, but we need more clearance. So next thing we need to do is cut further back here so we could have enough clearance for the transmission to pop up higher. Now, this is a lot of work to get a T56 into this marquis. If you were to take this route, you're probably better off going automatic. A lot less work, a lot less frustration. As you can see we have to mock things up 10 times for it to go in. So I'm going to go ahead now, I'm going to make a slice down the middle here, open the flaps up, and cut all the way behind. There was a bracket here, so I'm going to go above those two screws over there. Right there, there's two screws. Cut above there, and come and bring it back to here. And I'm probably going to make a little piece of sheet metal and go a little more oval with it, so the transmission, it doesn't hit the tunnel. Alright, so I made the hole larger, which I have a habit of doing. I went all the way up to there, and I don't know if I could show you guys. The transmission is where it's supposed to be, and there is enough room here for it. I could fit my finger now over here.
No, I raised it. There.
Oh wait, there it is. That's better. I could fit my whole hand over there, so that's good for vibration of the motor. It's not going to hit the tunnel now. I just got to make a little plate to go over here. And that's what you got to do to make this damn thing fit. Alright, so as you can see now, everything clears. And you got to do a little chopping up of the tunnel here to get this all fit. And now this thing is in loosely. I put this in belt here, and now to get through here, just got to finagle this with a pry bar a little bit. Okay, now the holes here are off a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to loosen these here and knock this more back. So, try and do that. Okay, now this goes back and forth nice and easily. Catch one bolt here, put some blue thread locker on it. That caught too. Oh yeah. She's a tight. And the transmission is in. Alright, the motor mounts are both tight. Alright, one thing we noticed here, these headers, these long tubes are hitting the control arm over here a little bit. So I'm just going to cut that tip off so it won't hit it. And now we have plenty of clearance over there. Alright, so I get a little brake fluid here just to lube up this seal a little bit. Get ready to pop this in. Oh yeah, oh baby, she's in. So I have a piece of 16 gauge sheet metal. I'm going to bend this, make a little hump, and put this on the tunnel inside. Just going to put it on the press and make a little bend in the middle. She's a bending. That's a nice bend over there, smooth. So I'm going to put that in the car, see how it looks. Alright, so I put the plate in there. As you can see, it fit in there nicely. And we have about a finger's space between the whole transmission and this plate. So we're really good here. Alright, so this is done. Okay, now we have seam sealer here. I'm just going to go around the perimeter of that plate. Alright, so we seam sealed the whole gap all the way around. We got a little bit at the end over there. It's not a big deal. We'll prevent it from rusting. So that's done. Alright, now we're going to put the clutch rod in, and going to put a E-clip over there to hold that rod in place. Alright, I just pushed that in, and now we can go ahead and bleed it. Okay, now we're going to put some .4 brake fluid in the remote reservoir for the clutch master. We routed the speed bleeder up here. Now there's different ways of bleeding the system. You could just bleed it through the bottom of that push fitting that we put in there just to bleed the master first. Then you connect it and you bleed the whole system. But we're going to bleed the whole thing at once. The way we are going to bleed it is I'm going to crack the bleeder open, then Brianna's going to press the clutch pedal all the way down, then she's going to hold it down, then I'm going to close the bleeder, then then she'll let off the clutch. And we're just going to repeat that until there's no more air bubbles coming out of the system. This is the third time that I opened it up and no air came out, so we're fully bled. This is shifter boot we're going to put in. Alright, now to put this in, we need to take the seats out because these are in the way. We also want to trim this down a little bit here, so we're able to move the seat up. So we're just going to cut this also over here. Alright, I ended up cutting that corner tip. Now it goes up some. And now the seat is out. Okay, now that I pushed the seat out of the way, they want you to put the trim plate on here and just outline how it's going to sit. Okay, carpet's cut. Now we're going to put this shifter knob in, put some blue thread locker on, and we're good. Now put this on and put this on top. Okay, so I'm using an 1/8 inch drill bit here to make a hole. Okay, so that's all we're putting in for now. Alright, so they supply you with a nut here that goes in the bottom of the ball and it goes on top. And the shifter's in place. Okay, now we're measuring for the drive shaft length. We're going to get a new custom drive shaft put in here. We're going to need a T56 end on one side, and the other side is going to be a flange for a Ford. So the car has to be on its own weight, so we have the car sitting on blocks. It's 54.5 inches from the end of this shaft over here until the flange, the face of the flange over there. So we're going to take this measurement to the drive shaft shop and have let them make us a new drive shaft. We're going to put the drive shaft in now. We got it back from the drive shaft shop, and this is trans gel. I'm just putting a little bit over here where the seals are going to sit. And pop it in. I put a little bit of blue thread locker on these, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. And we're good. Okay, I'm underneath the car now inside, where the clutch rod comes up here and swings in this arc. So I had my lovely camera girl assistant Brianna underneath the car, and the transmission was in first gear. I was pressing down the clutch, and the moment where the clutch disengages and she could turn the drive shaft, I marked it on here right there, and that was a reference point. So from there to there, it's about 1 inch travel for the clutch to disengage. So I'm thinking if we cut the clutch rod about 1/2 inch, it should put us exactly where we should be. Ideally, you would want to be at 1/4 inch past where it disengages. That's how you adjust the clutch stop as well. So I'm just going to cut that rod and refit it and see how it looks. Alright, so we cut the rod down. The clutch pedal came down a lot. It's a little past the brake pedal. And it engages roughly 1/4 inch or so before it bottoms out the pedal. So we're pretty much dead on balls, accurate here. And this is a good rough adjustment, and we're gonna adjust it more when we're driving the car. So we're done with this. So this is a computer harness from BP Automotive. It's for a Vortec LS1 drive-by cable, EV6. And this is what it looks like. Everything's labeled nicely. Comes with instructions. And let's put this in. Okay, so for now, we just plopped the wiring harness into the engine bay where everything should go. Bank number 1, injectors, and coil packs are over here. This is bank number 2. And the actual computer we're going to put over here. We just ordered some cheap little brackets from eBay to mount it over there. So we're going to keep this plopped in here for now, and as we put everything together, we're going to do the wiring and all the sensors and everything. We're going to connect everything. So next thing we're going to do now is the rocker arms. We're going to change the trunions. Alright, now since we're using a big cam, we got to change the trunions on here. We're going to upgrade these, because what happens is this breaks, pops on, and needle bearings go all over the place, so we don't want that. This is an upgrade kit for Tick Performance. SD1370 is the part number, and it comes with the bronze bushings here, and the trunnions. Also comes with assembly lube and some C-clips. This is nice because it comes with a magnet in the back, and you pop that right there. Then you take the rocker arm, and it sits right there. Then you take this tool, you take the smaller end of this to pop the trunnion out. And it's gonna pop a little bit, and it's gonna pop out right there. Now this is what happens to your engine once this falls apart. All these needle bearings go all over the place. So this is all garbage now. Now clean the inside over here where the trunnion sits. We use some assembly lube, very little, inside where the bushings are going to sit, the bronze bushings. Same thing here. Just like so for now. Take a little assembly lube, put inside and outside that. Take the tool and put this on the smaller side of the tool. Sits nicely over there. And now you can squeeze this in until it's pretty much flush and you can't see the bronze bushing over here anymore. Just like that. So that's installed on one end. Alright, now take some assembly lube, put it over here, make sure it goes in the grooves. Same thing on this side. You can install that in here. Make sure when you install this, the flat spot is on top of the rocker arm, because that's where the bolt head is going to sit. And now take the other bronze bushing and coat that with some assembly lube. Pop that over there. And now you're going to take the wider part of this tool, and it's going to sit just like that on the bronze bushing, and put this whole assembly inside the tool on the vise. It's all about the lube, baby. The butter sauce makes it happen. It's the magic sauce. And same thing here, until you can't see the bronze bushing anymore, and that's all the way in. And that turns nicely. Okay, now put the tool in here. I like to push it down with one finger, open it up, and it goes right in. And same thing on the other side. Push it down with one finger, and it's on. Now the next thing I like to do is I like to hold the trunnion with one hand so it doesn't move, and move the C-clip around. That means it's fully seated. And just give it one more whirl on the other side, and that's fully seated too. And you are done, baby. Alright, now we have 15 more to go with this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, now we put the push rods in, just for the first cylinder, to get that to top dead center. And these are the Hawks Motorsport ones. And I'll put some assembly lube, engine assembly lube, on the tips of these. Some on the lifter side, and some on the rocker arm side. Lube it. And now, just pop it in. Alright, we're going to find top dead center now in the cylinder. So that means both these lifters are going to be on the base circle of the cam, so both of these will be down. And my camera girl's going to have her finger over here as I spin it. And once she feels this blowing out air, that means we're in a compression stroke, and that's top dead center. So I'll go ahead and do this now. The exhaust is going up. Now the intake's going up. Now we should be getting close. Feel it?
Yeah.
Alright. To get it more precise too, I like to also put a screwdriver inside the spark plug hole. And you can see it going up and down. And once you feel the pressure, that means you're going up on the compression stroke. And you're going to see this go up and down. It means the piston is on its way up. And if you pass it and it goes back down, back it up a little bit until this is at the top mark. So that's what we did, and we're confirmed top dead center. Alright, now that all the push rods are in, make sure also when you put the push rods, push them down a little bit with your fingers. Just say they seated on the lifter cup. And now we're going to put the rocker arms in. Alright, take some assembly lube, put on the roller tip, on the rocker tip. Also put in the push rod cup. And it goes just like that. Bolts in. Okay, now I snug these down by hand, and as you can see, there is side-to-side motion here, but there's no up and down motion, so we are at 0 lash, and these are the correct size push rods. Also, if you want to know which is intake, which is exhaust, the exhaust is always lined up with the rocker arm here, and this is the intake. This is lined up with this one, so this is intake, this is exhaust. Okay, now I'm going to put the rest of the rocker arms in all around. Alright, now we tighten the exhaust rockers on cylinder 1, 2, 7, and 8 to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, they're all done. Now do the intake on 1, 3, 4, and 5 to 22 foot-pounds. So I did 1, 3, and 4 intake, and that's his number 5 intake. Okay, now I'm going to put a little mark here in the face of his balancer. So we're going to do 1 360-degree rotation. All the way until this mark goes back up. Dead nuts in the middle. Okay, now we're tightening down the exhaust rockers on cylinders 3, 4, 5, and 6 to 22 foot-pounds. And those are done. And now do the intake of cylinders 2, 6, 7, and 8. Alright, 2, 6, 7, and 8 intakes are done. All the rocker arms are torqued down. Alright, I'm just going to place these on for now, just to stop any debris from going in. Alright, so this is from an ICT billet. It's an LS truck block. There's a template here. I'm going to show you. We're going to use that to drill the block. There's a LS truck Saginaw power steering pump, an alternator bracket kit, and a foxbody AC compressor bracket for LS swap Mustang. This is everything here. This is the alternator bracket, power steering truck bracket, and this is the OEM foxbody AC compressor kit, and also give you a tensioner pulley. Alright, so this template goes right here. There's a little ear over here. That's where you drill your hole. We're putting a M10 1.5 bolt in there. So we have to drill and tap for that. Okay, so that's nice and tight. Okay, so this is about how deep we have to drill this thing. It's about 1/2 inch. We might go a hair bigger. Alright, I'm going to start by punching a little hole here. Alright, I'm using a 7/32 drill bit first, just to get us started. And that should be good. I put tape where I want it to go. Okay, this is an 11/32 drill bit. And I put some tap magic over there. Now go ahead and drill this in. Now we're going to use an M10 1.5 tap here with some tap magic. get that started. Alright, I think that's it. Now we can go and back this out. We were backing it in, backing it up, putting it back in. Backing it up, put it back in. We even took the tap out and we cleaned the hole with some brake cleaner. Oh, look at that! Look at that, Brianna!
Wow, that's a nice hole.
Isn't it?
Amazing.
Works nicely.
Reminds me of my Uncle Francine's hole.
I'm not gonna ask how you know about that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay! This is Wally, the big gray water pump. And we put the gaskets in the back, with the bolts through it. Now, put this bad boy in. These are gonna go down to 22 foot-pounds. And the last one. And we're done. So this is how the alternator bracket goes. The bolts go through the front and this bracket goes through the front. There's two spacers in the back. I had the spacer in the back before, but it's the same. It's half an inch back here, either way. But this is how it bolts up. Okay. That's tight. And that's tight. Now for this pulley over here. I put a little grease here because this is a machine to tight tolerances to put this in. Ah, look at that. Went right in, Brianna.
Oh, wow. Look at
A
that.
little bit of butter sauce.
Oh, yeah.
What I've been saying all this time. Put a little bit of blue thread locker here. And that goes right there. And it's good. Okay, so now we have to decrease the pressure of this power steering pump. And this is from Borgeson. It's a GM pump pressure reducing kit. We're putting this in. It's part number 899001. And it comes with shims, a collar, and an O-ring. So first thing you gotta do is take this off. Oh yeah, woo! Alright, now once that comes off, the flow valve is in here. Just like that. Pops out. That's the flow valve. There's also a spring here, but I'm going to leave that in there. Alright, now this is what they supply you with to protect it when you put it in the vise. So any scoring over here will change the flow. So now there's shims in here. So I got to take this nut off on top of the 7/16 nut. So go ahead and loosen that. Just like that. So take these shims out. So we're going to put 4 of the shims that they give you. This is a Mustang rack. They operate around 9 to 1,000 psi, 900 to 1,000 psi, but we're going to go conservative here because you don't want to go too much because you blow out the seals. So we're putting 4 and you should reduce it down to about 850 psi. Alright, put 4 in there. Now tighten this back down. And that's good. Alright, so I put the spring back on. There's nothing scored on here. And this should go in like that. Alright, now to push this back in, I can put the collar in a 1-inch socket. And thread that on here. So you have to give it the beans. You have to go press hard for this to go in. And you're good. Alright, so this bracket with these spacers go over here. I also put some blue thread locker on these bolts. And these 2 bolts up here. Also put thread locker on those as well. And you're good. Now we're putting this power steering pump pulley on. That's the part number from DriveWorks. This pump, by the way, is for 2003 Chevy Silverado 1500 with a 5.3 in it. If you were wondering, you go ahead and install this pulley now on this pump. we're using this. You can rent this from AutoZone for free. It's 27031 from OEM. And we're going to use this to install it. This goes on here like that. And this threads onto that. And tighten her down. Alright, and it's seated. Okay, now these small spacers and these bolts, this bracket goes on here. Alright, now these spacers here. Alright, so that's just there to hold it. And now this one. And now I'm going to tighten these two. Alright, now I put the spacers, bolts, and these back here go through the bracket. So I can put it in at an angle. Yep. And a pair of nuts in the back. Yeah, that's tight. That's tight. And that's tight. Another bracket for the AC compressor. We tried putting this in before, but you have to loosen the water pump to pry it up, give you enough space to put this in. There's little spacers here, and also put thread locker here on these bolts. So one bolt goes in the bottom over there, and now catch the top. That's good. That's good. And that's good. Alright, now we're going to put this on the back of the compressor. The V, there's a little V here that goes down. Okay, these are semi-tight. I'm going to tighten it back down on the car. And this is going to go like this. And this is going to go in the bottom of the bracket with the nut. Okay, now this goes behind it like that. And just got to put a nut on that. There you go. Alright, now these three over here, two on the bottom, one on top. Alright, the bottom two caught. Alright, put this one in. Alright, two bolts go over here. One goes here. Another one goes down here. This one is a tensioner, idler pulley. And this goes in the middle like that, and there's a little dowel pin that goes into. Alright, now this one here, this pulley, you have a thick washer, and you have a spacer in the back. It goes right there with a nut in the back. So now everything's loose, I go ahead and tighten everything down. And now I tightened all three in the back, and this thing's in. This is a foxbody AC condenser. On the bottom I just put rubber hoses. I opened it up and put it on the bottom of the feet. So it's a nice tight fit when you put this in. As you can see, put that right in there. Push down. And now we can put these on top. Nice tight fit, baby. And this thing isn't going anywhere. It's a 4th generation Camaro Firebird radiator we're going to put in here. So this thing goes all the way to the end of the radiator here. So I'm just going to slice this off because it's in our way. Alright, it's nice and flush now. So these are in the way of the radiator. They have to go that way. So let's see what I could do here. Try to bend them over. Alright, so we got this to sit down on the mounts. It's a little to the right, towards the driver's side, which isn't a big deal. I kind of like where this sits over there. Okay, now I'm going to put nut certs here. registered in there. And that one's done. And now, screw these down. And the radiator is in place. So we're putting in AC Delco oxygen sensors. The harness, the ECM harness, they specified which oxygen sensors to get because of the harness over here. So I'm just going to put these in, one on each side. Alright, so we're going to mount a switched fuse block. We're going to mount a ground block, and for the switched fuse block you also need a solenoid, or relay rather. Now you probably don't have to do this for your LS swap, but we're doing it because we have no extra places to put switch circuits on, so we want to have that. If you want to know more details on how to do this, I'm going to have a link in the description below where I showed how I did this on a 2nd gen Camaro. The exact same parts and exact same procedure. So I'm just going to mount these over here. Also, one more thing I want to mention. The battery, we're going to put the computer here. We're not going to put the computer here now. We're going to put the battery here now. The computer's going to go over there. Because the battery originally went there. And we can't put the battery here because the AC compressor is in the way. So we have to relocate the battery on this side. So putting the battery here is actually a better idea also because the alternator is over there. It's a direct run to charge the battery from the alternator. And everything's going to be, all the battery components are going to be here. So it works out probably a little better this way. Okay, so I mounted everything over there. They want you to have an ignition hot source, which we tested with a test light over here. This ignition hot, this went to the old coil in this car, the ignition coil. So we're going to use this power wire to power our switched fuse block over there, power fuse block. This should also have power during cranking. You need that obviously for the fuel injection, to fire the injectors and the spark. So I'm just going to cut this here, get rid of this, don't need this, and route it straight to that relay over there. And it's going to power, like I said, it's going to power our switched fuse block. Okay, so I ran the switched 12 volt over here to the relay and a switch circuit of the relay, and I put a power wire to the other spade for the switch circuit of the relay. So we have power and ground over here for this. I'm using this ground bar. Like I said before, I'm putting ground bar here. Now for the main feeds over here, I do not have cable at the moment. While we're waiting on parts, so we're going to go ahead and do the cooling fans now. And for the cooling fans, they give you this cool diagram here on what to use and where to use it. So for 86 and 85 on a switch circuit side of the relay, for fan number 1, they give you a dark green and a pink wire for those two. And 87 goes to the cooling fan and 30 goes to the battery. So this is what they give you here. This controls the first relay, and this controls the second cooling fan relay. This is also a switched ignition source that I'm going to run straight to that switched power block over there. Now the cooling fans I'm putting in here are 4th generation Camaro Firebird fans, and they slip right in. I took the connectors off here so I can start wiring them. So let me just slip this in for now. There's 4 tabs that slide in, which makes this pretty cool. Like that, baby. So these are the 40 amp relays we're using by Racetronics. You pretty much have to put them together. I'm just going to mount the tops where I want them for now onto the car where the frame rail is. And she's in, baby. A quick video of how to connect these terminals on these wires for the relays. Alright, so you put the seal down there, and this goes like this. So I'm going to strip it over there. just like that. Twist her up, and this goes right in there. I got my WeatherPack crimpers. And that's what it looks like, a nice crimp baby. And this is the dark blue for fan number 2. And like I said, there's a diagram for these. So if you fan number 2, dark blue goes to number 85 on the relay. So when you look back here, number 85, you probably won't be able to see it, but it's right there. And this only goes in one way, so if you get it wrong, to put it back in and reposition it. So I already did these two. The connector for the fan, I put a 10 gauge cable for the ground, and that's going to go straight to a ground distribution block for the fan. And this wire here goes to the relay, to the number 87 on the relay. Then from number 30 on the relay, it's going to go straight to the battery using a circuit breaker. So I'm just going to go ahead and wire this. Everything's in the directions over here. It's very simple on how to wire this. So almost done. Okay, so this relay is all wired up. So is the first one. And this clicks right in. They also provide you with a lock. These relays are really nice. And what I did, I just mark the number 1 so I know which fan is number 1. Alright, this is also done. Don't worry about this mess. We're going to wire loom and probably clamp everything to the side of the rails over there so it's going to be nice and neat. And just put this in. Just like that. And we're pretty much done with the cooling fans. And this is the switched power for the ECU. Okay, so last of the wiring is they supply you with a 14 gauge wire. Since we're using a 255 pump, this is fine. We're just going to connect this to the 10 gauge wire that we have. If we decide to upgrade at a later time, we already have the 10 gauge wire run already. So we just connect that to a, we can make our own circuit for that and connect this just to operate the relay, for the switch side of the relay. Over here, these are the rest of the wires that we need to mess with. This is the tach. This is the speedometer. For these two, we don't know yet what we're going to do. We might just get a dash for it, but we're going to figure that out at a later point. And this over here is the malfunction indicator. These two wires, and we have a check engine light from Painless that we're going to hook up to that. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to run these wires inside. We're also messing around with the harness as we're doing this swap. We took the vacuum tee out in the back over here. We don't need it. We're going to do our own vacuum stuff later. Over here we threw down the bank 1 oxygen sensor. The VSS sensor and all that stuff goes back there. Bank 2 O2 sensor down here. And there's also this says over here, starter battery cable stud, but since this is a Ford, we're going to put it here because that's where the battery cable goes, so we're going to put this one over here. Everything is pretty much lined up. So that's what it looks like so far. Okay, so for the remaining wires, we had to extend them, put butt connectors on them and extend them because they wouldn't reach to go inside the car. The same thing with this OBD2 diagnostic port. I had to cut it, we'd extend the wires. And now we're going to go through the factory grommet over here, through the hole over here, inside to the car. Alright, so this is the grommet. We're going to pass all the wires through that we extended. We also labeled what they are. So what we're doing here is we're pulling through an all pressure gauge sensor wire and the fuel pump power wire. I think it's on there. Yep, it's on there. Alright. So a 10 gauge fuel pump wire goes to the 14 gauge fuel pump wire on the harness. Alright, now we'll put in the OBD2 connector inside the car, under the dash over here. Alright, and now we put all the plastics back. The only thing we need to do now is we're going to put the check engine light right over here. So this is what's going in the car. Oil pressure gauge, check engine light, and a 12 volt plug. So it looks like. Just drilled holes and popped them in. And for check engine light, that's the part number from Painless Wiring, part number 80207. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the car. Alright, so this is inside the car. This is from the factory wiring. We put an aftermarket 12 volt outlet over here. This is the check engine light. And we connected this to the two wires coming from the harness. And that's an oil pressure gauge. The yellow wire we pulled into the engine bay. That came from here, and that was the sensor wire for this gauge. The stock wiring for the light bulb, the ashtray, we're connected to the light bulb here, and that's automatic dimming. Now let me show you when we turn the car on. It's on, and it dims it. Another way of doing that is also connecting it to the dimmer, but this is a better way to do this in this car. Also foxbody, same thing. You connect it to the ashtray light. And the only other thing on this was a ignition hot source, which we're going to tap into the fuse block, the stock fuse block for. So that's pretty much it with the wiring. Over here, if you noticed, we didn't put this plate, by the way, because we like it better like this. Okay, now we're going to take the lift plate off. So it comes off. This is the ICT billet valley cover, part number 551629. It's a nice little piece. Comes the plate, the cover, and bolts. And put her on and bolt it down. Alright, all the bolts in. I'm just going to go in a circular manner, starting from in, going out. And they're all done. So over here we just started a rope around all the pulleys. We're going to put some tension on it and then get the measurement. Then we're going to bring this to the parts store and tell them we want 2 sizes up and two sizes down, 6 rib belt, and we're going to come back and test them out. Okay, now we're going to put the intake on. These are Felpro gaskets, part number MS92438, and it comes with new intake port rubber gaskets, and these felts to protect the knock sensors, but we don't have knock sensors in this car, so we're not going to use those. So pop these old ones out and put the new ones in. So she wrote. Okay, now we're putting a map sensor in. This is from Delphi. It goes in the back of the intake manifold, and we don't need that. And this should go in, just should push right in, just like that. Okay, so we put a 1/4 inch ID hose back here, a vacuum hose. This is for the vacuum heat door actuators inside, and the HVAC, and that's good. So this is a throttle body gasket. This is part number from Felpro 61069, and we're replacing this one that's on here. We're using an ICT billet throttle body adapter for an LS. It's part number 551513. And the throttle body we have is a 4 bolt, and this here is a 3 bolt, so it adapts it over. And these 3 screws are number 4 Allens. I put some thread lock, blue thread locker on them, and it's good. So we have a used Nick Williams 92mm throttle body. And this ICT billet adapter came with bolts. Thread these on. And we're good. Now this is the IAC that came with the junkyard motor that we got. I put a little bit of silicone lube on this O-ring. Throttle position sensor. Goes in like that. And on she goes. Make sure you align all the ports. And the front is like a dowel pin that goes through for the front bolt over here. And that should be it. Okay, so this is the torque sequence we're going to use. 1, 2, 3, 4, going around and out like that. First pass is 44 inch-pounds, and the second pass is 89 inch-pounds. And I'm also going to use blue thread locker on the bolts. These are the bolts we're using for my CT billet. Alright, so we did the first pass of 44 inch-pounds in the sequence, and now we just finished the 89 foot-pounds, and we're all good. Alright, so we got a plug here. This is for the oil level sensor on the engine oil pan. So we're just going to plug it. We're not going to use one. And that's good. So Brianna actually spent some money, and she spent it on starter bolts.
Oh yeah, wow, shiny.
We're surprised, right? Well, anyway, that's the part number 430-3506, and these are the starter bolts for this LS engine. Now we're going to jump the small terminal with the big terminal, only because we're just going to have a power wire go straight to it on the ignition crank. So we're going to put the starter in now. Alright, and in she goes. Go from the front over here. This will take some finagling to put in. Just like that. Alright, and they're both tight. Now be careful, they might feel like the cross-threading in the beginning. That's because the knurling is going through and it's grabbing. Now for the battery cable that goes to the post on the solenoid, on the fender, I'm putting a heat wrap on it, and we have a 90-degree lug on it. And I'm just putting metal zip ties here. So this is how we're going to route the cable. I'll put it on a stud over there. It's going to be like that. And this is going to go straight up. And that's tight. Zip tie it over here. It'll be nice and out of the way. And that cable is good. Now we're going to wrap the starter. This is what we're using. Now to try to snake this around.
Wow, Clown, you're wrapping it like a baby.
You like it?
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I got some long metal zip ties, and we're going to use these. Alright, so there's one. So we have a little reservoir tank. We're going to mount it down here on this bracket. I made two little marks where I'm going to put it. And it's tight. This is the GM part number for this steam line, the vents over here. Now this car in the back is sitting down, pitched down towards the back. So the steam ports in the back are blocked off. We're only going to use this for the front. So this goes underneath here. Just like that. I'll put some adhesives on the bolts, pop those in, and tighten those down. And they're tight. So we got this pressure sensor adapter over here. This is a M16 1.5 adapter to an 1/8 inch NPT. So we're going to use this adapter on the bottom, in the back of the block, and this is what it's going to look like. We had these laying around. I'm just going to put a pipe plug on top here because this is a three-way, a T with 3 female connections. We only need 2 of them. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so I already put the pipe plug on top, put thread sealant on it, and drove it all the way down. Now over here, I'm going to put some monster blue tape, and I'm going to leave about 2 threads on the bottom and the tip exposed, just so we still have that ground going through. And you go with the threads. So everything has blue Teflon tape on it. I'm just going to go ahead and install these on the car. Pop this in. And that's good. And you're good. Alright, now we're over here on the bottom of the block. On the driver's side, take that plug off. And that's the part number of this fitting right here. You could put over there and put a hose at the end of it. 650-256. If you Google that, this will pop up. So thread that in there. And press the hose on. Alright, now take this off. And we're going to use some clown milk to oil up this engine, or aka engine oil. Alright, now it's go time. We'll put probably close to 20 psi and let it prime the system. And as you can see, we're getting oil coming out of here. So it took about 15 minutes. We kept cranking the engine by hand, little by little, and every single rocker arm has oil on it now. Also make sure when you do this that your oil filter is in, or else you're going to be leaking oil all over the place. So we is good here, Sparky. I opened the valve covers on. These are valve cover gaskets we're using from Felpro. It comes with the rubber gaskets, and also comes with the valve, with the seals for the bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on. Just pop them in, just like that. These are the bolts. Really easy to take off the seals here. Grab a new one, use some silicone spray. Remember, butter sauce is key in anything you do. And this should pop right on. Just like that. Now I'm going to change all of these. Okay, put these on. I put some anti-seize on these bolts because they're going aluminum heads. This is another ICT billet piece. This is the brackets for the coils. This is what they look like. And they come with the bolts. Now I'm putting the coils on the brackets. Put a little bit of anti-seize on these. And pop these in. And I'm turning into the Tin Man. And that coil's done too. Just gonna go ahead and put all the coils on. Alright, the coils are on the bracket. And now we mount the bracket onto the valve covers. And these bolts here, I put blue thread locker on them. And they're all tight. Alright, now we're using these fuel injectors. These are chuck injectors, 50 pound per hour. These chuck injectors, in order to make them fit with the Ls7 fuel rails, you need adapters, spacers, to push them down to make up for the space, because these are shorter. So we're going to put these on the intake manifold now. Get a drop of oil, motor oil, put it on the fuel injector, and then you can just squeeze this in. Whew, she's a tight fit, Brianna. I'll put a little motor oil on the bottom ring too, and now just pop this on the intake manifold, and that faces on the outside. So these are the fuel rails we're going to use. This is from Jegs. These are part number 14400, and they come with fittings at the ends. They come with this pre-made line, which is going to connect these two. And over here at the end, I actually had this laying around in the shop. I have an adapter for a fuel pressure gauge, 8th NPT over there, and a cap at the end because we don't want to do anything else with that. And that goes on here. And this is the driver's side. And the passenger side, we're putting 2-6s on either end. I also had this laying around the shop. This is a PTFE line, a Teflon line. We're going to use this to connect to the hard line that we routed inside the engine bay. Okay, now these things they give you, these are O-ring fittings. So you gotta put the O-ring on here. I put a little bit of motor oil on it and just put it at the end so it's a snug fit. I'm go ahead and put all the fittings on these rails. Okay, so everything's tight. On this side of the fuel rail, I'm going to leave this loose because I haven't decided yet how I want to point this fuel pressure gauge on here. But I am going to tighten this end over here. The last thing I'm going to do is get some compressed air and blow it through the fuel rails. Also blow out the fuel lines. Okay, so it's time to put the fuel rail on. I put oil on these O-rings on top. And now just to press this in, gotta align everything. Okay. Alright, press down and wiggle and jiggle a little bit. And it looks like they're all in. I'm now going to put these brackets on. Put the bolts in through here. And use the top hole. They give you a lock washer and a nut. It's good. Alright, so this rail is bolted down. And this fuel rail's in. So the fuel rails are on. I also want to mention these brackets, I had them on wrong. The two holes should be on top over here. And I put it on the top hole. Alright, put the front line on. And they're both tight. Now I'm going to put this fuel pressure gauge on the rail from All-Star Performance, 80206 part number. I'm going to put some blue Teflon on here and pop it on. Okay, now I determined the position of that fuel pressure gauge and I'm going to tighten this down. The fuel pressure gauge is going to go right here. I couldn't find my blue Teflon, so I went and put the white Teflon on here. Alright, that's good. Alright, so this fuel line here, I'm probably going to cut it over here somewhere and do a 37-degree flare here and join it with the union. So I cut this line over here. Now I'm going to deburr it real quick. Now I'm putting a tube nut, -6, and a tube sleeve for a 3/8 line. Now to make the 37-degree flare. And this is good. And that is a perfect flare. It's perfect. Now before I do any connections, I'm going to blow this out with some compressed air. Disconnect the line from the back over here. I put a double male -6 union here. Now I get to connect it over here to my new flare. Alright, so I'm going to tighten everything down at a later point, but you guys get the picture. I'm going to put a hose clamp down here to hold this there. I still got to put the AC stuff here, and the wiring harness has to go through here. So that's pretty much it with the fuel line. That's how it's going to look. Okay, now put a little bit of anti-seize on the spark plugs. I'm going to put these in. We gapped these at 40. So this goes over here. And that's good. Alright, now I put some dielectric grease on here, also on the end of the spark plug. And that just clicked in. And that's in too. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the rest in. And everything is done on both sides. Okay, now we're going to mock up the upper radiator hose. We got this over here. This is from ICT Billet. That's the part number. And we got this angle 1/8 inch NPT with a 1/4 inch inside diameter barb, hose barb, and that's the part number for that. This is from a 4th gen Camaro. We're gonna cut this and then we're gonna join it together with this and put this over here and then join it with this line over here to the vent line. Use some thread sealant down here on these threads. Pop this on here. Alright, so I put this end over there and I'm just gonna cut this here for now and see where we land. And cut away, baby. Oh yeah. So put them side by side. As you can see, we're actually pretty good there. And this is gonna go here. So I'm gonna give us a little bit of room there for that. And if I cut it right there, I think we should be good. So I put masking tape. This will make me get a straighter cut. And go ahead and cut that. Alright, so pop that on. Pop that on. And pop that on. And that looks nice. Now we have to connect this to this, the steam vent. That's good. Now we're putting the coolant sensor in. That's a GM part number for that. And it goes on the driver's side of the head over here. And we're done. We routed the harness where everything should be. I'm gonna go ahead and start plugging stuff in. This harness has a connector for the bank 2 coils and the bank 1 coils. And this was from the junkyard, and this connects to the coils. So first thing we're going to do is just connect this here to this. And there's a lock you can also put here if you want. Just like that. Now put the coils in. Now for the injector connectors, when you pop this in, it should click, and then you push this down. To take it off, you gotta push this back up, push this tab in, and it comes off. So just go ahead and put all the injectors in. Coolant temperature sensor, idle air control, throttle position sensor, alternator, map sensor, and that's in. Camshaft position sensor in the back of the block. Since we're back here on our vacuum line, and I'm just going to get to a vacuum line from the back that we did before. That was right next to the map sensor, and that's good. The crankshaft position sensor is right above the starter right here. This was a bit of a pain to put in. I had to push it in from the front with a long screwdriver. I had to position it with my fingertips. This is probably better to put in without the starter in place, but that's in. So these are the wires that went to the previous old transmission that was here. The black, pink, and the orange and blue are the reverse lights. So we have a pigtail here for the reverse lights. And I'm going to lengthen these wires, and it goes right over here on the transmission. So all we have to do to pop this in is we're going to disconnect the transmission mount and lower the engine a little bit because it doesn't fit. So I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to plug that in and extend these wires. And these wires here, the white, pink, and the pink blue, these are your neutral safety. So these you can either connect them together or put a switch on it for like an anti-theft device. This only starts the car if it senses that the transmission is in neutral or park. So if you connect them together, it's going to think it's always in neutral or park. So that's what these wires are here. So I'm just going to finish this off. Okay, so there's a speed sensor on this harness. and that goes on a tail shaft over here. So just plug that in. The reverse lockout we're not using, so we just took what was there before, we JB welded it, and we're gonna put that in and plug that hole up there. So that's what we're gonna do with that. And the skip shift solenoid is up there, but we plugged that and we're not gonna use that. Now the O2 sensors, plug those in too. And that comes with a lock. Just put that in, that's locked. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this up and zip tie it out of the way of the exhaust. And that's bank 1. Bank 2 on the passenger side, same thing. We'll pop this in. And same thing, we're gonna zip tie it on top, get out of the way of the header. Now we're gonna mount the computer. We got these cheapy eBay brackets from eBay for LS computer mounting, and you just put a T25 torque spit here and loosen these 4 torque spit screws. Alright, so this is how we're gonna mount it. We're gonna put grommets in here in these holes, so the computer isn't ground out. You don't want it to ground out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put these grommets in here. Alright, now I'm gonna modify this bracket a little bit because this bracket over here, it's touching the frame of the car. So I just gotta cut this piece off of it. Okay, so I cut that. Alright, now this is the computer mocked up in the car. It's gonna go over there. And on the bottom over there, I just put a 1/4-20 standard size thread bolt, and it goes right in. They already had a nut in the back there from the factory, so I get to reuse that hole. And over here, that's where I had to clearance it because I don't want to touch the frame. So I'm gonna make a hole here and a hole here and put nutserts in there. Oh yeah. Woo! She's tight, Brianna.
Oh, I love it.
Pay attention. Now you gotta squeeze her. Alright, now I'm ready to put this on. I'm also putting extra grommets at the ends over here. Like I said, the reason for these grommets is I don't want a ground loop to happen because you can't ground this computer. So now I'm going to put these connectors on. And this only goes in one way, so you gotta pop it in like that. Now tighten down this bolt. Oh, she's squeaking and she's good. And she's good. And she's going in, Brianna. She's going in, man. And the ECM is mounted. So to mount this little fuse block, they supply you with a little bracket with the harness. It clips on back here. So we're gonna mount this over here, just like that. Alright, so this is mounted. So we got this from eBay. This is from LSX Innovations. It's a battery hold-on tray for an Optima. And we're gonna relocate the battery on the driver's side from the passenger side. It's gonna go right here, somewhere around there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 2 nutserts, one here, and we're gonna make 2 L brackets underneath here and tie them to the frame to hold, to make it more reinforced over here on this side. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut the corner off a little bit on this, just so I could push this over because the battery might be touching the radiator hose. It's not a big deal, but just to give us a little bit of extra clearance. I'm just gonna grind this down a little bit over there. Alright, so as you can see, I got about 1 inch more, and the battery should definitely clear the radiator hose now. Pretty good. So my new plan is I took an 1/8 inch thick piece of flat stock. I bent it 90 degrees. I'm gonna make a hole here and a hole here and put this right in the middle of the battery tray right here. and bolt that up, and this is not going to go anywhere. Okay, so I put a nutsert in the frame rail. I put a nutsert here on top. Alright, that's tight. And I also put a bolt on top, and it lines up. So when you grab this, you can move the whole car up and down. It's not going anywhere. One last thing we gotta do here is we gotta drill out these threads, because when we put this bolt in with a hold down, it'll bottom out on this, and it's not gonna draw this up to meet the bracket that we did. So just drill her out. Okay, so that's tight, and this tray's not going anywhere. So I just drilled that out, and that goes right there. So when you want to take the battery out, you don't have to futz around with this bolt here. You just take out the 2 screws at the end, and that's it. And battery's in, baby. All right, now the throttle bracket goes on like this. We were playing around with this just to see how this fits over here. So it doesn't, you couldn't really make it work. I'll show you in a second what I mean. I'm going to take it off the car and show you. But before we go there, I'm going to show you how we fix that too. Before we go there, I'm just going to put this in here and tighten this down. Alright, so we noticed this is hitting over here. I'm just going to cut this side and make this smaller. So the problem here we're having with the throttle cable is when you put this fitting in, you can't push this through. It just doesn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little channel in here to have this come out the bottom over here. Then we're going to cut this cable to fit. As you can see here, I have to cut a channel on the left side of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now with my little Dremel. So put it in the hole, just like so. And it comes right through, baby. What I like to see. Alright, so I tightened that down. Now I'm going to put this in through here. Okay, now I'm all the way down. As you can see, there's some slack here. So I'm just going to pull that out. Just like that. And tighten down the set screw. And now my lovely camera assistant Brianna is inside the car. So Brianna, can you floor it? Pedal to the metal, baby.
Oh, here we go.
Do it. Hold it down, full throttle. That is achieving full throttle. And we're good. Okay, now we can tighten this down. Alright. Okay, now that we know everything is correct, we could go over here, hold this with this, and tighten that down. Okay, now to continue with this harness, there's a wire here and it says starter battery cable stud. And this should be always hot. So we made a cable that goes straight to the battery. This is the cable here, it's a 2-gauge welding cable. So this goes on the hot side of the Ford solenoid. And then put this here. And put the nut on here. Okay, that's done. Alright, I'm not going to show you every little detail of the wiring. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do now, then I'll show you when it's done. We have a 4-gauge cable. And this is the alternator charge cable. It's coming from the power here to the back of the alternator. So we're going to make that cable. Also, we're going to make a cable coming from the positive battery to feed the left side of this relay to give juice to the switched on power fuse block. So we're going to do a 4-gauge cable to that spade on the left over here. Then we're going to have a negative cable going from the negative side here to the block, and then a negative cable going to the frame. And we're also going to have a negative cable in the back going from the engine to the firewall. So I'm going to go ahead and do all those cables. Okay, so one of the last wires we're going to connect right now from the harness, these are 2 grounds, and these are going to go to the back of the head, and this wire we just made is going to go to the firewall here. When we put in the firewall, we're going to scratch this down, sand it down to the bare metal, and then put some dielectric grease on there so it won't rust, and put this on there like that. So these are one of the last wires, like I said, from the harness. This one here is a knock sensor. We're not going to use this, so we can just cap that off. Go ahead and put this in. Alright, now I'm connecting this wire here. This is the sensor wire for the oil pressure gauge inside the car. Now everything is connected here, except the grounds. These two grounds go here. One ground, like I said before, goes to the frame rail. And one ground goes to the distribution block here. And the other side of that goes into the engine. So that's everything wired up pretty much. These are just AC extension wires that we have here. And we're going to loom everything up and make sure nothing touches anything so it doesn't chafe on anything. And it's going to look nice once we're done. So we tighten down all the fuel lines. I'm going to put a clamp here and clamp this over here so it's far away from everything. And you need a little slack over here because when the engine vibrates or torques over, you need this to compensate for that. So I'm just going to clamp this line right here. Okay, now we do the power steering lines. There's two M16s that we got from ICT Billet, and that's the part number. It's M16-1.5 O-ring fitting, and there's an M14-1.5 O-ring fitting. That's what they look like. And these convert your steering rack to AN. When you look at the rack over here, the blue fitting, that's the high pressure side, and the black, that's the low pressure side. So the high pressure side is M14, and the low pressure side is M16. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of power steering fluid. You gotta dip it in the butter sauce, Brianna, before you put it on.
Oh, yeah.
Put it on the O-ring so it's not on there dry. And do that to both fittings. The low pressure side. And that's tight. Now the high pressure side. And that's good. Alright, so the low pressure hose, we're also going to put an inline filter. And where it says flow and arrow, that should be pointing to the reservoir, to the power steering pump reservoir. This has a metal filter in it. You pop the snap ring off and you take everything apart and you just clean it. If it becomes clogged, there's also a bypass to bypass the filter. So this, I put a little bit of power steering fluid over here to act like a butter sauce, and it's going to clamp it over there now. Okay, we're using this fitting here for the low pressure side. This is just a hose barb, -6 to a hose barb. Alright, so I'm going to just push this low pressure hose on a little bit on top and get on it later. And for the bottom one, just push that sucker in. And that's good. So back at the power steering pump, that's the high pressure side is the M16 fitting. That's tight. For the high pressure side, you need high pressure Teflon lines. So I got a 45 degree and a straight. The 45 degrees is going to go in the back of the power steering pump. And I got the Teflon hose here. So I'm going to put these in, I'm going to mark this, cut it, and make this line. Okay, so I put the fittings in. That tape is where I'm going to cut it. I gave it a little bit of a bend, just to account for the motor torquing over and stuff like that. So I'm just going to cut it there and put the fittings on. Alright, I'm going to make this line. I'm going to put a link in the description below on how to make Teflon hoses. So you guys have to suffer through this. But we can go ahead and do this hose. The last step I do here is blow it out for any debris. Put the hose on over here. And now the bottom one. And tighten her down. And that's good. And that's good. Alright, and the top part of the low pressure hose is done. Alright, so we played around with a couple of belt sizes, and this feels pretty good. I'm just going to stick with that one. I'll put this in. This is an 1/8 NPT with a right angle here, a hose barb, 3/8 hose. And this, there was a pipe plug here. Pop that out. Put this in. This is the fresh air. It's going to go right over here where the valve cover is, the passenger side. We're going to put a 3/8 hose. Column here, this is going to hit that. So I'm just going to cut one of these off. And now she clears, baby. So I'm just going to point this back and put a hose on that. Alright, so the valve cover here has a tube. I put 3/8 hose on it, and this is going to go around. We're going to do one of these jammies here and pop that in there, and we're going to zip tie this up here. Now the heater hose for the heater core, the water pump here has a 3/4 inch hose you have to put on this end and a 5/8 hose on this end. And I already put one on there. Put some of your favorite personal lubricant, in other words silicone lube over here. And now this is the 3/4 inch hose. And that's on. And the heater hoses are all done. This is the hose we're putting on the bottom over there. I measured to see how long it is. This is a 10 3/4 inch hose. Oh, she's a tight fit, Brianna.
Oh, wow.
Woo. Let's see if this one here fits. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And we're good. Alright, so this hose going down to the reservoir tank is done. In case you guys are wondering why we mounted it down there, that's just a regular reservoir tank. There's no pressure in there, so that's fine. You can mount that wherever you want over there. If it's an expansion tank where it's pressurized, you do want it up here close to the top of the radiator. So this is done. So for the brake vacuum hose, we're using a 3/8 to 1/2 inch coupler, hose coupler from ICT Billet. That's it right there. And this is what it looks like. 1/2 inch is in the back of the intake on the LS, and 3/8 is over here, the nipple of this brake booster. And now the 3/8 side, and that's done. Alright, so we're plugging stuff here with vacuum caps, stuff that we're not going to use, and a vacuum cap here. That's it with the vacuum caps. So this is the dipstick tube we're going to put in. This is a Dorman piece, part number 921003. And our oil pan in this car is from a 4th gen Camaro. So we're using a 4th gen dipstick tube and a 4th gen dipstick. So we're going to put this in now. Pushing. Keep pushing, Brianna. You can do it. It's almost there. It's almost there, Brianna. Yeah. There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Tight.
And the dipstick tube is in.
That aligns nicely right there in the head. And that's tight. And there you go. All done, baby. Alright, now I'm just going to fill up with power steering fluid. Brianna's going to go inside. It's going to turn the steering wheel lock to lock until all the bubbles come out of here. Then we're just going to top it off, and later on we're going to check it when we're driving it around. Alright guys, underneath the car now we're putting this floor and tunnel shield by DEI, and this is what it looks like. This is nice stuff, and the part number for this is right here, 050502, and we're just cutting it with some big scissors here, and we're putting it right here in the tunnel. Now this is for heat and for noise dampening. So we're also putting it over here underneath the headers. Wrap all that up. So everything looks nice and neat. So we continue with that. Okay, that looks good over there. We just press it down. Alright, now we're pressurizing the fuel system to make sure there's no leaks. We're just going to put the key on Ignition on, non-crank, just on. And feel around by hand, also look for any leaks. Alright, go ahead. As you can see, it's building pressure. Alright, so we're just going to go around now, check for any leaks, and if there's any leaks, just go ahead and tighten them down. Also check by the fuel filter. Alright, so the fuel pressure is steady, it was close to 60, 58 psi, that's where we want it. And we checked all around, there's no leaks, so we're good, Brianna. And now over here, what I'm going to do now is fill this up with 50-50 concentrate. You got to fill it up from the upper radiator hose, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so we filled it up, the block. The reason why we did that way is because the thermostat's in the bottom over here. So we filled up everything on the block side, put the radiator hose back on when it was filled, then filled the rest over here on the radiator side. Now we're just going to put a little bit in the overflow, and when we crank the car up, we're going to have the spill-free funnel over here to burp it out. Alright, so I went to 16 psi, I pressurized the coolant system, check for any leaks. This is to minimize any issues when we first start the car up. So check around the hoses, if you didn't tighten anything good down or a leak now. Everything looks good, and it looks like it's holding pressure pretty good too. So the PCV valve for 2003 Silverado, that goes back here. And we're going to put a 3/8 hose on top of that, a clamp, and clamp it on the other side too. And we're done. Alright, we're going to try to crank it. If it runs, it runs. We don't think it's going to run because we think the pass lock is on here. We have to get a tuner over to break into that. So we're also going to check while we're cranking it, the oil pressure inside. So go ahead, give it a start. It won't start. Okay. Oil pressure?
Oil pressure 75.
75 oil pressure. Nice. Alright, so we're gonna get a tuner over to crack this open, break into it, and start it up. Alright, now we're filling up the transmission fluid until it overflows from over there. Keep pumping, Brianna, is slacking.
Oh, wow, it sounds like some other pump I own,
A little too much information here.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, now we're gonna make the intake. So we have here we went to AutoZone, actually Advance, they both probably have it. This Spectre filter, and that's the part number right here. 8131 from Spectra. And it comes with different sizes over here, up to 4-inch. It's got adapters, but our stuff is 4-inch, so we're going to use the 4-inch. And it comes with a clamp. We also got this from Spectre. It's a 6-inch length tube, 4-inch opening, and this is what this looks like. I'm going to wind up cutting that down and drilling a hole for the intake air temperature sensor. This is a 4-inch elbow, 90-degree coupler from Spectra, 9781. And that's the elbow, and it comes with clamps. Alright, so the first thing, of course, you gotta do is you gotta measure it to see how wide this is. The diameter, it's 4 inches, so that's what we're working with here. I'm sorry, Brianna. I couldn't do any better. Alright, so put this in here, and now this goes here. So it's almost good. We're going to cut off maybe 2 inches to bring it more away from the battery terminals over there. Okay, so we're first going to cut off about 1 inch to see how that looks, and if we need more, we'll go to 2 inches. Okay, you could use a Sawzall here, but we already have a chop saw handy, so we're just going to do it that way. Alright, so the reason I taped this up is so it doesn't get scratched. Alright, so now I put it together. As you can see there, it fits like factory, baby. Alright, now there's pieces of metal in here, actually aluminum. Gonna get a round file and just take the pieces off. Blow some compressed air through here so we have no shrapnel. Okay, so we dry fit it again. This is the air temperature sensor wire. We're gonna put it down here somewhere. So it's gonna be right smack dab in the middle over here. Now this is the air intake temperature sensor we're using. It's an AC Delco piece. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. This air intake temperature sensor is 1/2 inch diameter. I have a 1/2 inch grommet inside diameter. Fits right over it. So what I'm going to do is, 1/2 inch is right there. I'm going to go a step above it to 5/8. And I have a piece of tape here to stop me. And start drilling her like it's Saturday night. Okay, now as you can see in there, the aluminum, it went inside the tube. So I'm using a 1/2 moon file, just to file that out. Okay, now put the grommet in. You just gotta work the hole with your finger. Put a little bit of silicone paste on this. So pop this in. She's tight. Oh yeah. Woo! She's in. So put this in here. Yank on it, make sure it doesn't come off. And now put the air intake temperature sensor on, and the air intake is done. Alright, so for the exhaust, we got this pipe kit. Comes with a bunch of bends, 3-inch bends, mandrel bends, some straight pipes. And over here, where the collector is, we're just going to put some clamps over here. And these slip on nicely. You just need 245s here. And over here, we made some cuts. I'm going to route this straight over here. And the exhaust gonna come straight over here. So just putting something together real quick for the exhaust. We're cutting the pipe, we're gonna put a muffler, a little resonator on here. Okay, now we're gonna weld a little muffler on there. So we're putting these hangers to hold the exhaust up. In this particular one, we're just going to put it through the frame rail over here with some bolts and weld the other end onto the exhaust. So the exhaust is done. This is just temporary. This is so we can get it running and tuned. Later on, we're going to have a better routing and more custom-made exhaust, better exhaust. This is just something we threw together in one night. Welded up the hangers over here. Same thing on the other side. Actually came out pretty good for just slapping it together. So that's what that looks like. We also painted it black and dumped it out the sides. Alright, so before we start the car, we got this off of Amazon, just real cheap. This connects to the OBD2 connector over there. And it's like a little display. We just want that so we could see the water temperature and the speedometer for now until we get something nice, maybe from Dakota Digital or something. So we're doing a quick backyard wheel alignment so we could drive it to the shop. That's the first thing we're gonna do. So I have the car on the ground. I also have a link in the description below on how to do this, so I'm not gonna show it in detail. Put a straight edge here, straight edge on the other side. 2 measuring tapes here and make sure they're the same. So the tires are pretty straight. We did that. So we're good now to drive the car to the shop to get an alignment. Alright, so we took the computer out, we took it to a shop. They took the anti-theft out and they set up a base tune on it. So we're going to start it for the first time with the spill-free funnel in. We're going to run it until the thermostat opens and burp all the air out of here. Also, we're gonna make sure that the fans kick on. And this is our first startup. We're gonna be checking for leaks underneath, all around. Start it for maybe a minute or so, shut off and do all that, and then keep on running it. So I'm just gonna give you a short clip here of us running the car for a little bit. Good. Temperature's at 195. RPM is good. Both fans turned on, the cooling fans. Ready to take this thing out for a rip. Alright, this shows 195, 850 RPM. We guys still gotta take it for a wheel alignment and a tune. Shit sounds nice, Brianna.
Oh yeah, clown.
We did good, we did good. Yeah, baby. We're just gonna do one final check, put it back on the lift, and check for any leaks. We hear no noises. Everything seems pretty legit, pretty good. So thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel, like me and share me. Toodaloo!